Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Issei was betrayed and stab him from behind by brother? Before I start, please do support for more awesome content, and subscribe my channel and like this video. Go support and follow the RageRevan for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story. Link in the description. A man with brown hair coughed up blood with brown eyes. He looked at the amount of blades that were stabbed in the back. He knew this was the end. He knew that he had no choice. He looked up to see his tormentor, his brother that made his life miserable and ruined it completely. Now he is on the verge of death. Dai was Issei's little brother, the little nuisance that made his life miserable from day one. He knew that one day his time has come. But not like this, not at the hands of his own brother. Issei could feel the poison emanating from his body. He knew this was Samuel's poison, which was made him cough up black blood. He could see the black poison emanating inside of his body. Why? Dai had a psychopathic grin on his face as he spoke. It is because you are of no use to me, brother. After everything I had done for you, is this how I am treated? Issei spoke while he coughed up blood. He looked in horror as Dai spoke. That's the thing, brother. You were always the disgrace, and the worst part is that no one is going to even cry or care for you. Issei started to lose his horrified look and soon became angry. Dai then continued, think about it, big brother. Think about the fact that ever since you were born, no one cared for you, except Grandpa and Grandma remained distant towards us. But after that, no one truly cared for you, even your own parents, sister, and friends. None of them did, and I didn't even have to lie to them. Do you want to know why? Dai spoke with a mocking tone, as he continued. It is because you lacked magic power and a sacred gear. This was identified at birth. Dai plunged the sword deeper into his chest, making him cough up blood. I and my sister, on the other hand, did have that power. Why do you think they neglected you for so long? Even when you tried gaining their attention. Issei realized the dreadful truth, which was no one cared or even loved him at all. He was all alone, except for one. However, someone else was fuming with anger, and this was Drake. But he had to keep quiet due to a promise he made to Issei, to not reveal himself, otherwise it will only cause problems. You realize, don't you, big brother? People in this world will only love you if you are strong, if you lie and deceive. That is why I survived for so long, and you tragically died. Dai spoke with no empathy and apathy. He could care less if his brother died. Issei coughed up blood and spoke. I guess you are right? But remember this, you will need me in the future one day. However, I won't be helping you in any way. Dai Hayada, Issei spoke while breathing as his body started to destroying into a molecular level, leaving nothing but a black charcoal husk. My job here is done now. To pretend. Dai soon teleported out of there. As Crom helplessly watched his host do this, he gritted his teeth in anger and fury, knowing he was just a spirit trapped in a gear which was against him, thanks to the biblical God. How could you do this to your own brother, Dai? You fucking psychopath. Crom spoke with a growl, as he added, oh, cheer up, Crom. Nobody is going to cry for that disgrace anyway. Dai spoke with a cheerful tone as he got rid of the evidence, while Crom helplessly watched him manipulate everyone once again. He couldn't do anything. Just as everyone fell to Dai's lies again, he was able to manipulate everyone by stating that Issei died during his fight against Shalba Beelzebub, which everyone brought. What he didn't expect was Issei's reputation to get a little better. But it didn't last long, thanks to Rias Gremory, who kept tarnishing his reputation. As for the ORC, they celebrated his demise, knowing that the plague was gone. What's worse was that images of him were burnt in the clubroom in happiness. Even Ko Academy celebrated his demise. 8. However, there was one that was not happy with his demise, and that was Ophis and Great Red. They reached the location where his corpse was present, as Ophis spoke with a sad tone. We are too late, Great Red angrily growled in response. I will make that bastard pay. Ophis nodded in agreement. However, she had a better idea, as she looked at Great Red and spoke. Don't, I have a better idea, will you listen? Great Red looked at her and asked, what idea? Ophis only gave a smile, however it was more sinister grin, which even made Great Red shiver. Summon RageRevan here. I would like to have a word with him. I could care less if this world gets wiped out, and only he can do it. The factions think of Dai as their savior, right? Let's see what happens when their only savior turns out to be a fraud. At their most desperate, Ophus's words made Great Red smile. As he spoke, Great Red likes the plan. Allow me. Great Red soon summoned a man in his S, with dark silver hair and hazel eyes. He looked much like his granddaughter, Valerie, albeit with shorter hair and a beard. He possessed a bottomless and creepy aura around his body. He wore the same Mao Lucifer attire as Serzex, although colored in silver. Ophus? Great Red? RageRevan spoke with surprise and fear as he remembered that he betrayed Ophus in order to gain a portion of her power, as Ophus floated towards him and spoke seriously. Hello, RageRevan, I would love to have a word with you. Ophus's words made RageRevan shiver. He knew she was not someone he should have ever crossed with. As Ophus spoke, I will not punish you for your betrayal. Only on one condition. Keep in mind. Turn your back or betray us and we won't hesitate to destroy everything you have ever built. RageRevan gulped in fear as he spoke. I won't disappoint, Ophus. Great Red. Good. Ophus spoke with a deep breath. Now listen carefully, RageRevan. Do what you were doing. However, make sure it is slow and painful. Take your time and make sure that you not only fail them at every step, but also humiliate them, especially die, alright? RageRevan nodded. He did not expect Ophus to say that, as she continued. But this is something I want you to do once you release Trihexa and the factions are on their last steps. I want you to reveal every single crime Dai has done, breaking the last of the morale. Make sure they are at their lows. Is that clear? RageRevan lost his fear and grew a sinister grin as he spoke truthfully. In truth, I was going to do something similar, except for the last few parts you have told me, but I shall do it properly. Ophus Sama. RageRevan spoke with a malicious grin, as he asked with a confused tone. But why would you want me to do this? Ophus shook her head and spoke. They killed the real hero, Issei Hayadu. This is something that you must do, RageRevan. No question, alright? I see. RageRevan spoke with a bow and spoke. Consider it done. Now may I leave? Ophus and Great Red nodded in agreement, as RageRevan soon leaves out of there, as Ophus and Great Red are going to enjoy their final moments. Scene change. Unknown location? Issei woke up in an unknown location. He looked around and asked, Where am I? Issei saw there was a slot machine in front of him, as a message displayed in front of him. Welcome, Issei Hayadu of Earth. Issei looked around again trying to see if there is anything else, but there was no one, just a slot machine, as he looked around calling out to anyone he could find. He then walked around as another message popped up. Since you are here, that means you have tragically died. Issei looked down, saddened and angered, remembering on how he died by his own brother's hands. A part of him wished vengeance. But at this point, it was pointless. He wondered why he is even here. His soul should be destroyed, along with Drake. And speaking of Drake, where is her? If you are wondering, your soul and your buddy's soul was saved before Samuel could destroy it. You are lucky. Not many Isseis survive this fate. You were then sent here then. I see. So what now? Another message soon popped up. You will soon be sent to a different world. But before Issei could continue reading, someone else joined the room. He was described to be a slender being with a smiling appearance. He was a yellow being, as he spoke. Sorry for being so late. The entity spoke with a smile, as he spoke. Welcome. Hope I didn't keep you waiting. I was the one who saved your and your buddy's soul before Samuel's soul could get destroyed. I see. Issei spoke with a surprise as he continued. But who are you? Me? My name is Revan. It is a pleasure to meet you, Issei Hayadu of Earth. Revan spoke with a smile, as Issei nodded in response. Speaking of your buddy, he is still in your sacred gear. Issei was surprised as he summoned his sacred gear. He tried calling out to Drake, but all he heard was snoring. This earned a sweat drop from Drake as Revan spoke. You see, I am a bit busy, so can you run the gacha machine and get a random skill? Revan spoke in continuation as Issei nodded. He soon headed to the machine and did so. Suddenly a skill came down, as Revan walked towards it and spoke. I see. So that is your skill. Issei was surprised by this as he spoke. What is this? This is city building, your legendary skill. It may not be useful on the surface, but you will be able to create a city of your own. And since you are dead in your old world, you will be reborn into a new world. Revan explained as Issei was surprised by this, as he asked, Reborn? You mean Ice-Sky? Revan nodded as he spoke. Yep, you will keep your memories from your new birth. You will be reborn as a small baby called Thor Regis, the oldest son of a noble in that world. You will have your own adventure in your own world. I see, so when do we begin? Issei spoke with interest. He did not want to go back to his old world at all. Revan then spoke with a shrug. Soon enough. Additionally, you will also keep gaining more and more skills. So as time passes by, you will become pretty strong, and yes, your new world journey will be way better than your old one journey. I can assure you that. Issei looked at him and nodded as he spoke. And you are not the first Issei I have Issei to a different world. So I have done this before and he is living a happy life, so you need not worry, okay? Issei looked at him and spoke. I see. Well, then I am ready. Revan nodded as he spoke seriously. You will soon be transported to that world. I wish you the best of luck, Issei Hayadu of Earth. Issei was soon transported into the world that he was sent to, the planet known as Amarius, where humans and other supernatural beings live there. However, they were not like the supernatural beings of Earth. Scene change. Regas household, Amarius AM. A woman with white hair and blue eyes wearing noble clothing was on Thebed. She was Aurelia Regas, Issei's new mother, and the one giving birth to him. She wore a blue crown on her head and blue heels. Her blue dress was of a medieval era noble clothing. Her chest pockets and sleeves were white in color while the rest of her dress was blue in color. Additionally, she wore a blue skirt and had blue-colored jewelry. Push harder, Lady Aurelia. The midwife spoke to Aurelia, kept screaming in pain as she finally pushed out a baby from her womb. He was described to be a white-haired boy with red eyes. The baby started to cry, like they all do, as Issei thought, seems like I have been reborn. The baby was soon then brought towards Aurelia, as she spoke with a smile. He is so cute. The baby stopped crying, as he took a glance at his mother and thought, I hope you are not like Mickey Hayadu. Aurelia hugged her son close to her. The midwife called someone on a magic circle and then spoke. I just got word that Lord Regas will be coming soon. Why, yes, I know, Aurelia spoke weakly, as the midwife waited for Lord Regas to come. As moments later he had come inside. He was described to be a young man of age, having long black hair, which was tied in a ponytail, and red eyes. He wore a full black clothing with a proper black shirt, black trench coat, tied by a red belt, and black pants. He was Robert Regas, Issei's new father. Aurelia! Sorry, I am so late. Regas spoke with a concerned tone, as Aurelia shook her head and spoke, No worries, Robert, our son is born. Robert walked towards the baby and carried him. With the baby looking at his new father with a surprise, he looked nothing like his old father. He was happy to see him, as he hoped that he is not like Gora Hayadu. Hi, little one. Robert smiled, happy that his first son was born, as Aurelia asked her husband, What should we name him? How about Thor Regas? How does that name sound? Thor. Issei was not surprised by this. He knew his name would be Thor, due to what Revan had spoken to him. I like that name. His name will be Thor Regas. Aurelia spoke with happiness as Robert puts the baby down, with Aurelia soon deciding to rest because of the exhausting birth that she had given. A small boy of age years was running around in the fields. This was Issei Hayadu, who was reincarnated as Thor Regas, the first child of the Regas family. The young boy was loved by both his parents, although his father was stricter amongst the two parents. The reason being was that his father wanted him to act like a proper noble, and not like someone else. He knew that this world was not the sunshine and rainbows it had been. His father had to deal with a lot of things, and he wanted his son to be ready for it. Drake had been with the boy since day one, and the two had been training inside of his mindscape, with Drake calling him by his real name Thor Regas, instead of partner or Issei, so that he did not trigger any bad memories. He was happy that Issei was having a happy life. Thor was a playful kid. He often was chased by his mother, who happily joined in playing with her son, although she struggled to run in the attire. Thor enjoyed playing with her. He never experienced this with his own first mother. She loved him like his own, and she never looked down upon him or hated him, like Mickey Hayadu. But since his mother was busy dealing with noble affairs, Thor was playing with someone else. It was his maid, Isabella Fairhair. She was a maid that worked in the Regas mansion, and is the caretaker of Thor Regas. She was described to be a beautiful blonde-haired woman wearing a British maid costume. She had blue eyes. Her maid costume was described to be white in color, with the part below her chest being navy blue in color. She wore a white apron and a white headpiece, along with matching white gloves. "Young Master Thor, please don't run!" Isabella had a tough time catching up to Thor, as he kept running around trying to goad the maid into catching him. She had a tick mark on her forehead, annoyed by the year-old able to outmatch her ability to escape. She had to make up a plan in order for her to catch him, and she knew exactly how to do so. She soon sat down, and spoke. "Nope, I am not chasing after you." Thor had a pouting expression, as he exclaimed, Why?" Isabella responded with an annoyed tone. "Because you run so fast that I can't even reach to you, young Master Thor." However, Isabella was faking her annoyed tone, causing Thor to come closer to her. He then spoke. "Fine, I will go easy on you." Just as Thor came closer, Isabella managed to grab him and embrace him while exclaiming, "Caught you!" Thor wanted to retort, however Isabella held him closer to her chest. Now there is one thing that needs to be known, is that despite Thor's looks and personality, he is still a year-old teenager trapped inside of a child's body. This meant that he often was embarrassed due to certain things babies and children did at a very young age. One such instance that gives shivers to Thor's expression is the fact that he was made to drink his mother's milk right from the source. He was happy that this was all over, but this often made his mother and his caretaker hug him, with the latter often pulling his head right next to his chest. This made Thor very embarrassed as he struggled to get out of the maid's bear hug, while Drake was laughing his ass off seeing his partner like that. Thor soon was released, making him breathe a sigh of relief internally. He was happy that he did not burst a nut, but he soon might if this goes on. However, this was not the first time this happened. Only Isabella and Aurelia were able to deceive and play with him. But Thor did not mind. This was the first time in his life he has had happiness. "Thor!" Someone called out to him, as it was revealed to be his father Robert, as Thor looked at him and spoke. "Yes, father?" Robert then responded. "It's time for your training, young man." Thor nodded as he spoke. "Yes, father." Thor soon went inside, as his maid followed him suit. She knew that Thor needed help with his training to be a young noble. Scene change. "That is not how you hold the fork. Try again." Thor. Robert spoke with an understanding yet frustrated tone. This was his try of screwing up in holding a fork. Thor had a tough time adjusting to his new noble life. Despite being a 5-year-old, his father wanted to put him some values that will be useful to him as he grows. "Just give me a second, father." Thor once again adjusted the fingers properly. However, this time he had gotten it right. He held it properly and was able to eat without causing any discomfort or trouble. "Finally, you did it." Robert spoke with a relieved tone, as Thor did it again. He now was able to hold the fork properly without any issues. See, once you are able to hold it properly, you shouldn't have trouble dealing with the fork, and you are done with your table manners lesson. Thor. Robert spoke with a smile, as Thor spoke with a smile. "Thanks, Dad." Robert was surprised by this, as he asked, "What is this, Dad, my son?" Thor was surprised. It was a slip of his tongue from his old life, and he did not know how it came out. He needed to be careful, as Thor spoke. "It is an alternate for father. Sorry, it won't happen again." Thor spoke with a worried tone, as Robert only gave a smile and responded, "If it makes you feel comfortable, you can call me that, but only when we are under closed doors. When we are in a function, then it is father, alright?" Thor nodded in understanding, as Thor was tutored by his father, who also continued to train him in all forms of noble actions. Scene change. Time skip brought to you by SMG. Coming to this world 8 years later, Riga's household, Thor, years old, was present amongst his parents, maid Isabella, and a small black-haired baby. She was described to be a black-haired girl and was being held by Aurelia. This was Amora Regas, the daughter of Robert and Aurelia and Thor's younger sister. The reason they were here was because the church wanted to baptize and assess the boy. However, Thor noticed the worry in Robert's expression. He did not seem to be a big fan of the church. Additionally, Thor was more curious to know more about this world. He headed to his father's lab where he read about the different races that were in this world, aside from humans, that is. Thor was constantly kept reading as he remembered a conversation between him and his father years ago. Flashback. Years ago, Robert was in his office, sorting some paperwork that he had been working in his office, when Thor came into his office and asked, "May I come in, Dad?" Thor looked at his son and gave a smile. "Sure, son, come in." Thor walked inside as he sat on a chair, and asked, "Dad, what are these other species that inhabit this world? I want to know, why don't they live around us humans, and why do some even hate us?" Robert looked at him and sighed. He knew that this question would come one day. Unlike most nobles that look down on other races, Robert did not. His experiences with the other races, especially the demi-humans and dragonborn, showed a completely different side of the story. He wanted to make sure that Thor does not become like those said nobles due to interacting them on a daily basis. Additionally, some of the nobles took demi-humans as a slave for their own purposes, especially if they were female. "Son, it is a big story. You see, our world is comprised of several races. We have us, that are the humans, and then we have races like demi-humans, humans that have animal traits like a cat's tail or rabbit ears, for instance. Demons that have either pale blue skin or dark skin with different eyes and horns. Dragonborn that look like humans but can shape-shift into actual gigantic dragons. Succubus, an only female race, that have horns, wings and a really high drive. Elves, that have pointed ears and make jungles and forests their homes. Fairies, an only female race, that have butterfly or transparent wings, and are polar opposites of succubi. Giants, humanoid beings who can grow up to twice the size as regular human beings. Mermaids, underwater humanoids with the tail of a sea creature, mostly fish tails, and have to walk on land by using a magic spell. Harpies that are parallel to mermaids, and have wings for hands, and aerodynamic bodies allowing them to fly. These are the races that live amongst us humans, however. Many of them are not welcome in human towns. Thor and Drake were surprised by this, as he asked, "Why? What did they do to us, for us to warrant such hatred?" Thor's words made Robert sigh as he spoke. "No, that's not the reason. They didn't do anything. You can thank the church for warranting such hatred. They spread lies about many of them being monsters and killers that plague our kind. Many brought this belief, causing our society to be like this. Additionally, any of that who sympathized with them were met with execution or exile. Those that did were called heretics, son. That is why our countries often exile demi-humans and their sympathizers, or worse, execute them." Thor nodded in understanding as he asked, "Then why don't we have them with us?" Thor's words made Robert speak sadly. "Truth is, son, the church is powerful. They have heroes that can level up entire grounds and kingdoms, destroying it. I didn't want to risk my people, that is why I don't allow, but maybe, in the future, we can let them in, and I would love for that day to come, son." Thor nodded in understanding, as he could that one day, things could be better. Flashback ends. "Nervous, my child?" Aurelia spoke with a worried smile, as Thor shook his head and responded, "No, mother, I am not. But why does the church want to see me?" Thor asked his mother, who grew worried as she spoke. "They wish to see your capabilities, to see if they enlist you as a hero." Aurelia spoke with a concerned tone. She was worried for her son, as soon the church showed up, along with several bishops and them being led by their pope. The Pope Ishtar Langbard. Ishtar was a man in his with many wrinkles and long white hair. If it were not for his wrinkled face, one could say it was over years. Ishtar wore very brilliant white religious robes and a white headdress resembling a mitre cap of about centimeter tall with gold trimmings. Ishtar wore very brilliant white religious robes and a white headdress resembling a mitre cap of about centimeter tall with gold trimmings. Pope Ishtar Langbard. Robert spoke seriously and with a bit of respect to not anger the church as the Pope greeted the noble. "Good morning, Lord Regis." Ishtar looked towards Thor. As the boy looked at the Pope with surprise, he could sense something was off with him, as he looked at him and spoke. "So you must be young Thor Regis. It is nice to meet you." Thor nodded and spoke with respect. "Yes, Pope, that is me. But what do you mean by assess?" The Pope smiled to Thor and spoke. "I will be seeing if you have an additional skill, a magic skill that would be beneficial to your powers. You are familiar with magic, aren't you, young Regis?" Thor nodded as he spoke. "Indeed, I am. So when can we begin?" Ishtar spoke with a calming tone. "Patience, young man, it will happen soon. Now please place your hand forward, so that we can begin with the assessment." Thor puts his left hand forward. As he closed his eyes, he could see his first skill, and that was city building. Only moments later, he started to shiver, as he saw Drake inside of his body. He soon opened his eyes and looked at Thor with fear, which only lasted for a moment, before he composed himself. Drake was worried since the Pope saw the dragon. He wondered if the boy would even want to become a hero, as he looked at Robert and spoke with slight disdain. That boy has no skill, you should disown him and get rid of him from your house, unless you want to disgrace your household. Ishtar's words made the Regis family wide-eyed, while Robert narrowed his gaze towards Ishtar. The man did not trust the church at all, and he knew his son was skilled. He was hiding something, that was for sure, and he had no reason to pressurize him. He looked at Ishtar and only gave a nod. Additionally, Robert and Aurelia both wanted to see the church leave. They were not devout followers of goddess Isis, since her teachings were lies, but they did not want to go against the church since they were known to possess heroic skills that were known to be devastating or dangerous to them. Their whole kingdom will get destroyed if they tried crossing against the church, which was something they did not want to do so. They also did not trust Ishtar as well, knowing his devout loyalty to the church, with Ishtar speaking with a solemn tone. Well, I would apologize for my words. I have a tendency of not hesitating to speak the truth. But I think you should prepare your daughter for the next in line for your throne and throw away your son. Ishtar spoke coldly as Thor looked at his father clenching his fists. It was taking everything for him to not punch the Pope so hard. The church soon took their leave and they were away from the place, as Robert angrily generated a fireball magic and threw it at a nearby vase, breaking it, much to Aurelia, Amora and Thor's shock. Dear! Aurelia shouted in concern, as Amora started to wake up due to what had happened. She soon started to cry as she calmed her daughter down. Thor was concerned as Robert screamed with anger. How dare he talk about my son and daughter like that? Church is filled to the brim with scum like them? If it wasn't for those damned heroes, I would have socked his face for talking about my children like that. Thor understood his father's anger while Aurelia spoke with an understanding tone, to calm her husband down. Dear, I know you are angry, but if anyone or the goddess hears you, she will only cause more problems. Please calm yourself, Aurelia spoke while approaching her husband. Amora was a bit calm, but she was still teary-eyed. Robert took a look at them and apologized. I am sorry, Aurelia, I won't let my anger cloud my judgment. Aurelia gave a smile. As Thor looked at his father, Robert looked back at his son and crouched to him and spoke with a smile. Don't listen to that Pope. Sony have no intention of discarding or throwing you away like that, Pope said. And sorry for my anger. I have a bad habit of losing my temper when people close to me are bad-mouthed. Thor nodded in understanding as he spoke. No, it's all right, and thanks, Dad. Aurelia and Robert gave a smile to their son as Aurelia spoke. Our best option would be to send Thor inside. We need to know what the church will do next. Aurelia's words were understood by Robert as he knew to send his most trusted to spy on them. He hoped that their family was not a target. A few hours later, Regis household, p.m. Robert was working inside as he decided to finish the last of his paperwork that he had for the day. However, just as he was about to rest, a soldier came inside as he was shouting, My lord, you need to take a look at this. Robert was caught off guard as he soon showed a magic circle recording that made him extremely angry at the Pope for planning an assassination attempt on his son. Additionally, he also found out the Pope lied to him. Thor was powerful, and they sensed a powerful dragon inside of him, with a village-building skill. He knew he had to act quickly. He couldn't protect his son by keeping him here. He had no choice but to send him away in secret. He immediately rushed to tell his wife and son about this, but not before asking his son's stuff to be packed, as Aurelia responded, No, Robert. I refuse to part with my son. He is just years old, and has no means of surviving. Even if he is strong, I don't want him in the wilderness. Robert sighed. He knew Aurelia is known to be stubborn, and she loved her son more than anything else. Amora was long asleep, as she had to rest for a while. But Aurelia, keeping him here will only endanger his life. Them not knowing him to be absent will deter their attacks. Please, Aurelia. It is the only way. Robert spoke sadly. As Aurelia started to tear up on the thought of losing her son, she had already lost her parents due to sickness, and now she had to say goodbye to her son. She hated that, as Robert hugged his wife. Don't worry, we will find a way to make sure he is alive and safe. Thor looked at his parents. They were worried for him. They really were worried for him. They were his true family, not his old family. Mother, father, please, I accept going to the exiled location. I will be fine. Thor spoke, garnering the attention of his parents. But Aurelia rushed to Thor as she spoke. You are too young for this. I can't risk your life out there. I will be fine. If it makes you feel better, I will keep writing a letter. I promise you. Mother Aurelia looked at her son, as he continued, I will even secretly find a visit from time after time, and eventually I will be here for a long time. Worry not, mother, I will be alright. Aurelia hugged her son. The love his mother had was genuine. He never felt this even from his previous life. He returned the embrace as she spoke. Please do right, Thor, and for my sake, try and visit. You are my son, and you will always be welcome. I know, mother, I know. Aurelia smiled at her son, as Robert soon hugged him as he spoke. Your mother is right, and you can always come back here, but tonight, you will have to leave. I have already assigned the servants to pack your stuff, so I would say to get ready. Thor nodded. He clenched his fists, as he vowed to make the church pay for putting his new life under such misery, which included his parents. They soon headed towards the outside as several servants brought his stuff, as his mother hugged in one final time, as she spoke, Take care, Thor. I will, mother, I will. Aurelia smiled in response, as he soon took his stuff and headed back into the carriage. Thor waved goodbye to his parents, who did the same. His parents watched helplessly as they could only see their firstborn leave them, especially like this. Aurelia was crying as Robert consoled her. They hoped that he would survive. Thor only sat in the carriage, angered by what had happened to his parents. His mother, whom he was very close to, was forced to abandon him due to the church controlling most of the lands. He heard stories of his father state the church to be more or less of a cult at this point. They control entire kingdoms, realms for their own profits, treat everyone like they are beneath them. He could see the sadness and devastation in her eyes. His father, while strict, was still the loving father he was meant to be. He did not want his son to be like most nobles and wanted to make sure Thor was well behaved when the time comes for him to take up his father's place as the new Regis. He also trained Thor in magic and other swordsmanship, not letting him slip up. He was still close to his father regardless, and seeing the sadness and grief in his eyes angered Thor to no bounds. Partner Drake spoke with a tone of worry as Thor responded, No, Drake, I was given a new life, and I won't let anyone take that away from me. I will destroy anyone that threatens me and my new family, no matter what happens. Drake nodded in understanding as he spoke. I know, and I will help you in this, partner, no matter what happens. Thanks, Drake. Thor had made up his mind. He vowed to protect his new family at all costs, no matter if he even makes this so-called goddess also his enemy. Scene change. Time skip brought to you by Chibi. Thor being sucked into a portal. Years later, unknown location. PM. A man in his late s was seen looking outside of his office. He wore a white three-piece suit which consisted of a white coat, a white inner coat and a black shirt, with a tie. His shoulder sleeves were black in color. He wore black pants, and he had short, neatly trimmed hair, which was white and had red eyes. This was Thor Regis, now a 8-year-old man. It's been years since things have become better. And 3 years since my fight against the goddess Visus. It's a good thing the goddess was killed. Thor spoke with a sigh, remembering on how he rebuilt the Regis kingdom from ground up after bringing several races together. The goddess made it harder. But that all changed when Thor stepped in, wiping out those so-called heroes, and took the fight up to the goddess herself. Flashback. Thor, was walking towards a beaten-up and battered woman that had the appearance of a beautiful woman with the hourglass figure, pretty face and clear skin. She also has light gray long straight hair and golden eyes. The goddess attire consists of a scanty dress that show off her body and a crown decorated with leaves. This was goddess Visus, the same goddess that was known for the creation of the church and the one that was the reason why Thor was forced to live far away from his parents. She opposed his ideals to live in peace and sent heroes to kill him. Via the church, he decided to show this goddess what happens when she messes with a human with the power of a red dragon emperor. Goddess Visus may look beautiful and had an hourglass figure on the surface. She may even seem motherly and charming to many, but in reality, she has a cruel and manipulative personality, being accustomed to use others and discard them when they are no longer useful. This can be seen as how she controlled her apostles, taking as hostage their families. The worst she did was when she went after Thor's mother during his war, or more accurately defense against the church. The goddess used to smile all the time and act like she's been kind. However, even while putting a cheerful face, she can speak cruel words and intimidate others as if was the most natural to do. She also seems to have an obsession with power, control and authority, dominate the heroes or the national leaders of the Holy Alliance. For this reason she doesn't tolerate when someone openly defy her or when the things doesn't go as she wants, like when the heroes started to stand up to her. In fact, Vices seems to look down on all of humanity, and that is the reason for which she believes that it is inadmissible that lower beings try to oppose her. Thor was what some would describe to be a transcendent human. One of the few abilities he had that could resist Vices's charms and abilities was his unfettered body, which allowed him to be physically invulnerable to any and all sorts of damage. Fate immunity, which allowed no one but him to control his own fate. Not even a god or a goddess can do that. Concept manipulation, which allowed him to manipulate concepts and manifest things into reality with just mere concepts. Personal database, which allowed him to have his very own intelligence system, allowing him to store information and even control it, even detect and locate information in hidden locations, and his well-known ability living anomaly, which is basically meant to be a being that should not exist. But those are the only known abilities of Thor. Some of them are still unknown to the world. He looked towards the goddess with absolute disdain, seeing her as a nothing but a lowly being with Vices doing the same. So Vices-sama, how does it feel to be looked down on by a lower-class being? Vices glared at Thor with pure hatred. How can a human become this strong, to take down a god? Thor had already healed himself of his injuries that he had. Even with unfettered body, he still is vulnerable to magic or abilities that can negate unfettered body. He was transcendent, not perfect. You bastard! You ruined everything I worked for. Everything I dash. Vices was unable to continue as Thor kicked her so hard that her jaw was broken, and she fell behind. Thor was radiating a dangerous amount of aura, as he angrily shouted, "You are the one that decided to get in my way, Vices! You are the reason why my mother never woke up even after all this while. She is still in a fucking coma. You use your own men as your pawns, and are the reason why other races and even humans suffer. You only see them as your pawns." Issei brought out two familiar pistols that he often uses for his fighting skills. This were Donner and Schlag pistols he made himself using another of his abilities, Transcendent Force Manipulation. He created the two from scratch, using anime for a reference. He shot her twice, aiming at her stomach, making her scream in pain. She looked at her wounds, knowing this would be the end of her life. She despised Thor more than anything else. While Thor also hated her, she was the reason why his mother has not woken up yet, and the only way to do so is if he defeats and kills the goddess, who won't stop until his life becomes miserable. Once she dies, so will the curse on his mother, and she will wake up. The goddess tried to raise her hands to command the curse to kill Aurelia, only for Thor to stomp her hand so hard that it was crushed. "Eh!" Vices screamed in pain. As she looked at it in horror, she could see the bones and blood coming from her hand. She cannot die like this, she won't die like this. But Thor had other plans. "Even now you want to make my life miserable. You are no different from those I encountered in my lifetime. You won't kill my mother." Thor then spoke to Drake. "Drake, boost my legs times. I want to put this so-called goddess in her place. Make it brutal, partner. I want to see this bitch 6 feet under." Drake commented, remembering on how much Thor or Issei worked harder to make sure he becomes stronger, to even surpass the boundaries and limitations set on his human body, eventually becoming the way he is. "Curse you, Regis! Curse you!" Vices shouted with all of her hatred, as Thor kicked her in the air, making her cough up blood. As she was in the air, Thor brought out his shotgun Alvis, and fired it, causing her to explode into chunks and pieces, as she soon fell down in a rain of blood and flesh, thus ending Vices' tyranny. However, Vices in her last-ditch effort managed to do something. She had been locating who Thor was and found out he was from another world. She vowed to ruin him at all costs after this. She couldn't harm his mother, since he could sense it. Maybe she can inform them about Thor's reincarnation, and tell them that he is here. Thor breathed a sigh of relief. It was finally over. Now he could return back. But he also decided to take her head to show the church that the war ended in their loss and his victory. Flashback ends. Thor sighed in relief, as he knew that no one will threaten or harm his family or loved ones ever again. Drake then spoke, reminiscing about the past, "Partner?" Drake spoke with a concerned tone, as Thor responded, "Yep, after that bitch Vices died, Mom had woken up from her comatose state. It was 3 years since I saw her face back then, we all were happy that she had finally woken up. I could see the happiness in mine. Dad's and Amora's facete was finally over. Thor remembered about everything. His mother coming back to them made everyone happy. Amora and Thor were the happiest, knowing that their mother had returned. Drake then spoke. And after that you created your very own continent, which comprised of several cities belonging to several races, humans, demons, beast-men, elves, fairies, dragons, orcs, succubi, mermaids and selkies to name a few. Thor nodded, remembering on how the negotiation with each of the cities was really hard, knowing many of the races either once looked down upon humanity, or hated and feared them due to the Church's transgressions and discrimination. However, after Visus's death that all changed and they all became allies with the Regis family, making it almost akin to an empire. Thor remembered on how much things have become better. There are many interspecies couples in the empire as well, with Thor having a wife who was also a part of it. Yes, Thor was married and he was more happier with his wife than anyone else he would have been. The empire was almost like a modern superpower, with the latest technology of Issei's world being incorporated here. So expect it to be like a modern city with magic and technology in a medieval-based era. This gave the Regis kingdom a massive advantage over the technology of other kingdoms, who still believed in the Church. They invaded the kingdom many times due to Thor killing Visus, only to be driven outside. Hence they were termed outsiders by those living in the kingdom, anyone from the kingdoms. Thor sighed. He did not want to make those people outsiders, but given their blind faith in the Church only caused them problems. They saw Visus as a martyr, but those that hated her were welcome in the kingdom. The reason being those that hated Visus and by extension, the Church, had their lives made miserable. Many of them had either loved ones that were deemed as heretics, or they were either from the other races that were part of it. They were welcomed into this place, and had to take some time to adjust with the new technology. As time passed, they became even more modernized. Even after Thor exposed Visus, the Church's influence was strong enough to prevent them from seeing reason, and they eventually became enemies of Regis. I mean, look at you, partner. Back in your old life, you would have never deemed this to be in this reality because of that bastard of your brother, and now look. You have a loving family, a loving wife. What else can you ask for? Thor agreed with Drake's wordings, as he knew this to be true. Eventually, when his reincarnation came to light in front of his parents, sister and wife, instead of abandoning him, they accepted him completely, not caring whether Thor was Issei or not. In the end, he was their son/brother/husband, and that was what mattered to him. Additionally, they hated those from his old life, especially the Hayate family. However, the one that was the most angry was his mother Aurelia, and Robert desperately tried to stop her from going full angry on his family, as she may end up getting hurt. Regardless, they are from a different world, and Issei could care less on what happens to them. Soon enough, someone else knocks on the door. Thor, can I come inside? I want to talk about something personal. Thor recognized the voice. As he spoke, you can come in, Lily. The woman Lily was described to be a beautiful woman with 2 raven-colored bat wings, and horns depicting that of bat wings. She had fair skin and blue eyes, with dark black hair. She wore a revealing outfit which displayed her massive chest. It was a dress that was designed with an ornament towards the center of the dress. She had a floral pattern designed towards her waist area. This was Lilith Lily Starlight, or her current name Lilith Starlight Regis, Thor's wife, and a higher succubus, which was a succubus that was known to be stronger than usual succubus, and can even surpass the magic ability of heroes. Thor, I brought some snacks. Thor, I brought some snacks. Lilith brought some wafers and juice for her husband as she kept them down. She soon snuggles her body next to him, and wraps her tail around Thor, and wraps her hands around him. She soon makes out with him, as their tongue intertwines with each other. This goes on for a while, and soon a film of saliva separates from them. Oh, for fuck's sake, can you two make out when I am sleeping or something? Drake exclaimed with an annoyed tone, as Lilith looks at the boosted gear and responds, Get used to it, Drake, that is how me and your partner love each other. Drake snorted in response. As he spoke, lustful succubus Lilith rolled her eyes and responded, Girlfriendless dragon that hit the heart, as Drake started to cry in response as he shouted, I swear to you, Lilith, I will also get a mate that loves me one day, watch me. Lilith shrugged and spoke with a mocking tone. Good luck with that. Thor's sweat dropped at this. They often acted as siblings, with Drake often being bullied by Lilith. She always knew on how to get a one-up on the Welsh dragon. Who knew that Drake would one day be crying like this? Thor soon calmed Drake down, as he spoke. Speaking of which, you came here for something, right, Lily? Why did you come here? Lilith soon lost her smile and became depressed, something that Drake picked up as he asked, Lily, what happened? Lilith started to sniffle. Drake wondered who made Lilith cry, as he would make them pay if that was going to happen. Even Thor was worried, and like Drake, the one who was responsible will suffer. 3 Don't know why, but I did not get pregnant again. Lilith soon brought a negative pregnancy test as she spoke. We did the D times, and not even once I became pregnant. Lilith started to cry, as Thor embraced her while rubbing her back. It does not matter if you don't become pregnant, we can always try again, and one day we will succeed. Thor couldn't do much to prevent his wife's sadness. He was trying, but he can't succeed as of yet. But he will do it one day. She will become pregnant no matter what happens. The reason why Lilith can't get pregnant, as succubi, both higher and lower, have a very low chance of getting pregnant, especially amongst the other races as well. They have the lowest pregnancy rate amongst any other race. Being creatures of pure lust, they often rely on seducing their partners, that they love and cherish no matter what happens. Succubi, both lesser and higher, are monogamous, meaning they mate for life. However, their bodies are often designed for, as a result they get pregnant even lesser, allowing them to pleasure their partners even more. But due to this, their chances of getting pregnant are the lowest. Thor knew what he had to do to calm her down. He looked her in the eye and spoke with a genuine smile. Lily, it does not matter if you can't be a mother yet, you know I will always love you, unconditionally, right? Thor spoke as Lilith looked away and spoke, I know, but... Lilith trailed away as Thor moved some of her hair and at her on the forehead, making her have a red tint, as he spoke. Come on, I want the woman I cherish with all my heart to smile. Where is that smile which caused me to fall for you when I was in the demon kingdom? Lilith soon wiped her tears and gave a smile. You are right, you will love me regardless of what happens. Now there is the Lily, I know. Thor exclaimed with happiness as Lilith also gave a bright smile. However, soon enough, someone else also knocked on the door. The couple turned to see it open. It soon revealed Thor's sister Amora Regis. Why? Amora Regis looked like a splitting image of her mother, except for the fact that she had black hair. She wore a white dress. Her dress had sort of puffs near its sleeves, as her dress was supported on the shoulders. She wore a black skirt, which had a red outline, and sandals. Thor cared for his sister, not to Xerxes or Seraphal's level, but he loved her regardless and cared for her. Big brother! Big sister! Amora exclaimed with happiness as she rushed to her older brother and sister-in-law, as they both happily embraced Amora, with Thor speaking after they split up. So how was your day in high school? Thor asked with a smile, as Amora responded, got my test results, once again aced in my technology class. Amora responded happily, as Thor responded, that's my little sister. Amora smiled in response, as Lilith brought out some snacks. As she spoke, you want some? Your brother did not wish to touch any. Sure, I will have some. Amora took some of the wafers and started eating it, as she soon took a seat to recover. Once she was done eating, she asked, where is Mom and Dad? Amora asked, noticing that they were not present, as Thor responded, they should be back by dinner, they had some work at the old home, so they will take some time. I see. Amora spoke as she soon sat down. She wondered what she can do today. She could hang out with her friends. However, just as she was planning, a magic circle suddenly was called underneath. The trio turned below as Thor became wide-eyed, recognizing who exactly it was responsible for this. He even knew the magic circle and growled who it was. It belonged to a certain red hair from his old world. Both Amora and Lilith acted quickly, trying to dispel it. However, they failed to do so. It's too strong. Both of you, you need to leave. Thor had to get his wife and younger sister out of there. He knew that this was that bloody Siskin's doing. He gritted his teeth. There was no way in hell he was going to let his wife or sister fall into their hands, especially his brother's hands. He pushed Amora out of the way, as he tried to do so with Lilith. However, she grabbed his hand and spoke, I am coming with you, and I will be with you till the very end. Before anyone could react, the magic circle forcefully summoned them, while Amora was left horrified. She had tears in her eyes knowing that someone forcefully summoned them. She had to inform her parents and the others about this. Scene change. In the DxD world, with Thor and Lilith, the couple looked around to see themselves seeing some very familiar figures. As a redhead figure walked towards him, Thor growled seeing him there, as he hated him along with some others with all of his might. Surzek's Lilith looked surprised as he spoke. That's him, the one you talked about. Thor looked at her and nodded. However, what surprised him the most is none of them aged, and they did not even change at all. Even his sorry excuse of his former parents, whom he expected to die or at least be very old-aged, were still the same age as they were before. Issei Hayadu, we want your help, that is why we summoned you here. Surzek spoke seriously as Thor glared at him. If there was one person he hated more aside from the Gremry, Citri Peerage and his family, it was this man. There was no way he was going to help them, at all. Thor looked towards Surzek with a growl. As Surzek looked at him and spoke, Issei Hayadu, we want your help, that is why we summoned you here. Like hell I will help any of you. And how the fuck did any of you even manage to contact me or find me here? Thor spoke angrily as Azazel walked forward and spoke seriously. Boy, you have no right to demand us for anything. Do as Azazel was unable to finish as a shot rang on his face sending him flying. He looked at the shot that had damaged his dress. He had a bullet hole in his left abdomen. He soon gritted his teeth in pain as he glared at Issei with anger in his eyes. The others looked at Azazel in shock, as they turned to see Thor had a new gun in his hand. This was Schlagen, the anti-material rifle. The rifle was powerful enough to even damage an S-rank monster in Issei's world and has claimed the lives of Enriadi armies in one shot. Now, am I going to have answers, or should I start blasting your call? Many were surprised by Issei's new attitude, while Dai gritted his teeth in anger. However, his attention soon turned to Lilith as he smiled sinisterly. He was going to get another girl in his harem. Hey beautiful, how about you ditch this disgrace of my brother? And Dai was unable to complete when Lilith twirled her body and punched his stomach so hard that he coughed up blood. He soon gave a kick to Dai's chin, breaking it, as he was sent flying towards a nearby wall. The girls in Dai's harem and the faction leaders were appalled by this, as Asia and Ravel rushed to heal him. The only one smiling was Thor himself as he muttered, "That's my wife." Lilith glared at Dai and spoke, "I am not interested, Hayadu. I am married to Thor Regis, and I am not going to be beside you." The girls in Dai's harem glared at Lilith with anger and hatred in their eyes, as Thor walked forward and spoke coldly, "So am I going to get my answers or should I start blasting? You little." Yasaka was ready to incinerate him as Odin stopped her and spoke, "We are asking for your help. It would be nice if you listen to us and help us. Like I will help any of you ever again, considering what you have done to me." Many glared at Thor in hatred. He could see Yasaka's tail swirling as he was ready to take her down. Out of all the leaders in the room, she was one of the weakest, and a well-placed anti-magic bullet shot can easily take her out of the equation. However, he is not interested in taking them down. He had to escape with his wife out of there, as he soon asked, "So are you going to tell me how the fuck am I here?" Thor demanded angrily as Rias, who was already angered by Issei's attitude, as she shouted arrogantly while walking towards him with her arms having the power of destruction. "You have no right to demand us, you damned! You should be helping us. After all, we are asking you to help us." Thor was angry for a moment, seeing that she was still the spoiled princess. However, it only lasted for a moment as Thor suddenly grinned. He had found a way to escape. Very poor choice of words, Gremry. Thor spoke coldly, as he soon got rid of his weapons, and had 2 magic circles, one in each hand. He was able to grab Lilith's hand much to her surprise as Ajuka recognized the other one. "Get away from him, he is about to explode!" Ajuka shouted in fear, as some tried to back away but it was too late. Thor and Lilith were enveloped in an explosion, as they soon disappeared out of there, something that they did not notice, as the ones closest to him, and the weaker ones were the most damaged. There was a huge crater and the building was destroyed as well. However, the one that stood out was Rias. She was completely damaged and passed out groaning in pain. She was bleeding on all sides, as she had several fatal wounds on her body. Surzek shouted in agony and horror, "Rias!" Those that were the healers immediately rushed to her to heal her, as the dust settled revealing nothing left. They all were horrified to know Thor killed himself with his wife, as they gritted their teeth in anger knowing their only hope for help was gone. Rias was rushed out of there. However, the smart ones sensed an additional magical signature in the explosion. Little do they know, he and his wife were safe and sound in a different location. Scene change. Unknown location AM. Thor and Lilith were safe and sound. Thor looked at his wife in concern, as he asked, "You okay?" "Sorry I had to do that, I was in a hurry." Lilith nodded as she responded, "Yeah, I am fine." Although Lilith soon grabbed Thor in a chokehold and started to make him struggle. "You idiot! Can't you give a heads up before doing something so reckless?" Lilith soon grabbed Thor in a chokehold and started to make him struggle. "You idiot! Can't you give a heads up before doing something so reckless?" A/N. I don't own this GIF or Akatsuki no Yona. Okay. Okay. I am sorry. It won't happen next time. Lilith soon released him and spoke with a sigh. "You know, your recklessness has gotten yourself into trouble so many times, remember?" I know. Lilith looked at him and sighed again. Thor can sometimes forget that despite his body archetype, he still has weaknesses. Lilith is primarily there to make sure this husband of hers does not get into trouble. As for Thor, if there are the few people that can scare him shitless, it was his mother and his wife. Their anger is not someone that she wanted to mess with. Crossing either of them, it was a death sentence, as Lilith spoke, changing the topic. "Anyways, this world is unfamiliar to me. What do we do now?" Lilith spoke as Thor responded, "First, we find a hotel room. Second, you would be needing to hide your wings and horn, since many don't know succubi exists, or more accurately humans of this world. They don't know anything about the succubi being real." Lilith nodded as she spoke. "I see, I can do that, darling." Lilith's body glowed as she now lost her horns, tails and wings. She had used disguise magic to hide herself. Her dress was still the same, and she showed more body, which often was loved by Thor. 8. How do I look, darling? Thor spoke with a smile, looking at his beloved wife's beauty. No matter how she looked, he will always love her, no matter what. "You look beautiful as always, my dear Lily." "Thanks, darling." Thor smiled as he soon remembered that they had to proceed with their next task in hand. "Our next job will be to make fake IDs. Fortunately, I have just the thing." Thor used conceptual manipulation to generate 2 false identification cards, as he gave her ID to Lily with her speaking. "So what is this? An identification card?" Thor nodded as he spoke. "Indeed, Lily, this is one of them. Right now we are in New York, USA, a place where the supernatural activity is low, but is present, so we can stay hidden." "That's good, darling. Speaking of which hotel are you going to go for? And how will you get the money to do so? Since I don't think you have that." Thor smiled in response as he spoke. "Leave everything to your husband, Lily." Thor spoke with a smile, as Lilith wondered what Thor plans on doing. She trusted Thor, no matter what happens, and for someone that was able to unite all races, she knew he would find a way. He was a skilled negotiator and was known to convince the races to be under one banner, and was able to gain their trust and respect. Scene change. Intercontinental, New York AM. Lilith jumped on the bed, releasing her wings, horns and tail due to her being in a room where nobody can locate her. The curtains were also closed, which was something Thor did before settling in the room. She moved her legs, as she stretched them completely. "Oh, this is so much great. You were able to bring about the best hotel and even the right amount of money for us to stay in, which included a few days." Lilith spoke with a cheerful tone, as Thor responded. "You are right on that one. I told you to leave everything to me, and I will make sure you get settled down no matter what happens." Lilith nodded with a beaming smile. "I agree, you certainly know how to make things work." Thor gave a smile, before his expression changes to being serious, as he spoke. "I know things are going to be difficult from here on out, but I will plan our way to head back to Outworld. I will build a device that will send us back to the old world." Lilith became concerned as she spoke. "Darling, what is the matter? Why can't you build the device?" "Because they can summon us again, or more accurately me again. They treated me so badly, and yet they had the audacity to demand my help. But that is not going to happen, no matter what they request me to do." Thor spoke with a growl, as Lilith walked towards him. She remembered during the earlier days of when he and she met for the first time, and when they were paired to deal with the heroes, Thor often lost his cool and wiped out entire armies without any mercy. Lilith often used to calm him down, as her presence helped him a lot. The two eventually fell in love as they were together in missions, and if Thor is able to love someone unconditionally, it is Lilith, and vice versa. She immediately used her tail to wrap around Thor and wrapped her around him, not to, but to calm him down. She knew how to calm her husband down, and will do anything to heal him. When it was revealed Thor was Issei's reincarnation, she was devastated and angry at what Thor went through, and she did not reject or abandon him, even when he wouldn't blame her if she did. She may be strict and lustful, but she is a devoted and caring wife as well. Hi, it's all in the past. You need not worry about those heathens and the sorry excuse of your family. You have me, you have Mom and Dad, and even your older sister. Don't let the past haunt you. Thor. Lilith embraced him lovingly. As Thor returned the embrace, they stayed like this for a few minutes before they split up. Feeling better, darling? Thor nodded as he spoke. Yeah, thanks, Lily. But you are right as well. Lilith spoke in a concerned tone. They will try to summon you again. I don't know how they even know that you were summoned to begin with, and the next thing we know, they might do this stunt again. We need to find a way to prevent this. You're right, Lily. Thor spoke in a worried tone. If his mother or sister would have come, they would be in serious trouble. Sure, they are skilled warriors, with his mother being a skilled ice mage, but even she had limitations, and he still remembered his mother's fall into a comatose state. Perhaps I can help with that. A person spoke emotionlessly as a magic circle depicting a purple infinity symbol showed up. Thor and Lilith looked at the one who came out. However, moments later Thor recognized who it was. It was none other than Ophis. It's been a while, Issei, or should I say, Thor Regis. Lilith looked at the little girl, and became gushed with how cute she looked. Thor looked at her and stopped her from doing anything foolish, as Ophis spoke with a tone of happiness. It's good to see you again. Ophis looked at Issei and his wife, as she spoke, and you have even found a lover, or mate, good for you. Lilith lost her gushy attitude and regained her composure, as she greeted Ophis. You must be Ophis, right? My husband Thor described you when he first met you. You are the only one that did not hate him in his old life. Yes, that is me. He did a lot for me. Even when I did not know him, I wished that I could have saved him, along with Bakared. But we were too late. That bastard had killed him. Ophis spoke emotionlessly. However, anger was present in her voice. Lilith also became angry, remembering her lover's demise, as she spoke with a sad smile, suppressing her anger. You need not worry, Ophis. You tried your best. Lilith spoke while rubbing Ophis's head as she soon took a seat. She then spoke. Although I can explain, how did they know that Thor Regis was Issei Hayadu? Truth be told, I myself was surprised when I heard you are alive in another world. But I knew not to disturb you. You had your own life, and I did not intend to disturb you in any way anyways. What? How did they come to know this was this happened? Ophis then continued as Thor and Lilith intently listened to what the infinite dragon goddess had to say. So as RageRevan was preparing his final assault on the factions, he was beginning to unseal the beast. Suddenly a huge voice in the supernatural was heard with proof, which was a video of you transforming into your balance breaker. If I remember, it said like this: I am Goddess Visus of the planet Amarius, and I have an urgent message. This boy Thor Regis is Issei Hayadu's reincarnation. He holds his soul and is the Red Dragon Emperor. He is the one that killed me and is ruling my world with an iron fist. This is to be known to everyone of his old world. Stop him, and bring him back. The voice ended. At first I was surprised, but we both decided to leave you alone. But the factions, they did not. They knew the wielder for the boosted gear has awakened but never revealed himself. But when it was nowhere to be found, they presumed that she was telling the truth, so they made a summoning circle using the sacred gear system to bring you here, while Surzex lead the situation. The others assisted him in bringing you back. However, your wife joining you was something I did not expect. Ophis's words made both Thor and Lilith really furious. Even after death, Visus still gave them a middle finger. He should have made sure to break her spirit before killing her. That bitch, I should have known. Even Drake was livid that Visus was the reason that they are even here. Ophis wondered who this Visus really was as Lilith explained to her. Ophis, Visus was as bad as the faction leaders, or dare I say, she was even worse than Dai Hayadu. Goddess Visus may look beautiful and had an hourglass figure on the surface. She may even seem motherly and charming to many. But in reality, she has a cruel and manipulative personality, being accustomed to use others and discard them when they are no longer useful. This can be seen as how she controls her apostles, taking as hostage their families. The worst she did was when she went after Thor's mother during his war, or more accurately defense against the church. The goddess used to smile all the time and act like she's been kind. However, even while putting a cheerful face, she can speak cruel words and intimidate others as if was the most natural to do. She also seems to have an obsession with power, control and authority, dominate the heroes or the national leaders of the Holy Alliance. For this reason she doesn't tolerate when someone openly defy her or when the things doesn't go as she wants, like when the heroes started to stand up to her. In fact, Vysa seems to look down on all of humanity, and that is the reason for which she believes that it is inadmissible that lower beings try to oppose her. Lilith explained to Ophis, who nodded. She was also angered by this. She was glad that Thor or Issei had killed her off for good, as Issei then continued. Worse, that bitch was why my mother was in comatose for a few years until I killed her. She hated all races and looked down upon them, including humans. She is the reason why the demi-humans and other species couldn't coexist, and uses her apostles and the church to do her bidding. She killed many undeserving as well as innocents through them, and I made sure to make her demise as painful as possible, hence I received the title. God-slaying Emperor Thor spoke with a solemn tone. He may hate war, but he will do it, if it means to protect the loved ones he cherished. Lilith kept her hand on her husband as she spoke. I was there with him when all of this happened. When my future mother-in-law was in comatose, I was just his girlfriend. We got married after the war ended, and ever since, we have been together ever since. Ophis looked at them, understanding what they must have been through. She then spoke with a worried tone. She did this to screw with Thor's life, and I guess this was one of the biggest middle fingers she could give to us before her death, by bringing the very same people that had once tormented my husband. Ophis nodded as she spoke. I see, but that is not the only thing that happened. You see, after you died, some things happened. Did you notice some changes in the factions? Ophis spoke, making Thor and Lilith confused. However, Thor soon recovered and spoke. Yeah, looking back, I did see some changes that had happened in the factions. I sensed another god and saw a pale girl that almost looked like a child. So who are they? Ophis spoke with a neutral tone. The god was Zeus, the Greek pantheon representative and leader, and the pale girl was Elmenhild Karnstein, from the House of Karnstein, the vampire representative. How did things get to there was something else. Ophis then explained the events that had happened in Romania, as well as the events that followed. Thor intently listened to everything Ophis had to say, as he soon became surprised and shook his head in disappointment, as he spoke. So Valerie and Rosweiss are dead, huh? Ophis nodded in response as she spoke. Yup, the three were killed due to die failing to save any of them. As a result, RageRevan not only gained access to the divine dividing, but he gained the Sephiroth Graal due to Valerie. And before Rosweiss' death her memories were extracted, which really helped them, and are now on the verge of desperation as a result. Dai suggested, and was able to convince you to bring him here. And with the message that Vysa sent, you were brought here today. Thor nodded in response. He did not know Valerie, while Rosweiss and Vali hated him. So it was no secret with Thor having hardly any empathy for them, while Lilith had no pity for them, as she shook her head in disappointment and spoke. Honestly, you can't help but feel disappointed. Believing lies is what brought about their demise, and as much as I hate to say it, they deserved it, especially for abandoning and treating my husband like garbage. I am pretty sure they are regretting in their sort of afterlife that is, if they are even. The Lilith spoke coldly, knowing full well what they did to her husband, except Valerie, with whom she couldn't help but feel disappointed in the factions for screwing her up her life. Thor sighed, knowing what kind of a woman Lilith can become, especially to those she hates. He soon turned to ask Ophis. And let me guess, the factions don't blame Dai in any way? Ophis narrowed her gaze and spoke. You know it. I should have known. Oh well, what can we do? Their deaths are not my problem. Our priority would be to get the hell out of here. Lilith nodded in agreement, as Ophis responded. There are a few things that you must do, but you have to do it before they find out about you. Now listen carefully. Your main goal is to sever any and all connection you have to this old world, since as long as you possess the connection your soul to this world, your soul still belong to this world. Even if you are born as Thor Regis, you still possess the soul of Issei Haida. Thor nodded in agreement. That was how the bastard factions managed to even summon him here. He then spoke. So what is the plan now? Thor asked, to which Ophis spoke. There are a few things you need to do, The first is to either remove the boosted gear from the sacred gear system or destroy the system completely. That is the first thing you need to do, that way they can't locate you ever again. The next thing is that you must delete all databases of your planet in the factions. Thanks to Bakared, he already informed me that most of the data is stored in Ajuka's laboratory. However, only 2 people have access to this, that being Latia and Ajuka himself. The third thing you must do is to remove your connection to your soul, which is present in the Shinto heaven Takamigaherence. You are done with these. You can head back to your world with your wife Thor, and Lilith nodded in understanding as he spoke. I see. Thank you, Ophis. So what do you plan on doing now? Ophis looked at him and spoke. I will be assisting RageRevan in awakening Trihexa, so I would suggest you two to get it done before weeks, else it can cause a problem in your plans. Thor understood this as he spoke. I see, very well. Ophis nodded as she soon said her goodbyes and teleported back, leaving the couple alone. Thor soon also lied on the bed in exhaustion as he spoke. That was really something. Lilith soon took a seat beside him as she spoke. You are right. The first impression I get from your world is hate comments, and your asshole of a former brother trying to flirt with me. The only thing he got was a roundhouse kick. Yup, that was how I was treated when I was Issei. But that is all in the past. Thor soon shook his head as he spoke. Now, you are my present and future, Lily, just like those from my old world. Lilith had a blush for a moment, as she soon smiled. However, that smile started to change into a more lustful, as she soon jumped on Thor and spoke with a lustful smile. So shall we plan for our future, darling? Thor gulped as a red tint grew on his face. As soon something bulged upwards which even made Lilith moan. She soon smirked, knowing what exactly it is, as she soon spoke with a seductive tone. Even Thor Jr. is ready for some action. Thor sighed as he spoke. Oh, you perverted succubus, come here, and let's do this. I would want nothing else, darling. Lilith spoke with a smile as she created a noise-canceling barriers so that the noise wouldn't come, as they soon were undressed and decided to do what couples do alone in a hotel room. Obviously, to fuck the hell out of each other like animals. Scene change. Serafal Memorial Hospital, Underworld, PM. While Lilith and Thor were having the time of their life, someone else's misery was in full display, and that was Surzek's Lucifer, who was seeing Rias recover from her wounds. But she was not the only one. Akino Himejima, Kaneko Tuju, Kuroka, Arthur Pendragon, Lefei Pendragon, Sona Citri, Tsubaki Shinra, Yudo Kiba, Zenobia Korda and Irina Shidu were in critical injury due to the explosion. He could only have a look of sadness in his eyes. Others were also not spared. The only ones who were the least injured were the leaders, minus Yasaka and Elmenhild, who had medium injuries on their bodies, along with some of their escorts like Graphia and some gods that were present like Thor, Athena and Artemis. The ones that had major injuries were those that were either closest to the explosion like many members of the DXD team, or were weak to handle the explosion like some of the members of the Phoenix family, to name a few. He clenched his fists, knowing Issei was responsible for this. He could care less if he was called Thor. To him, he was the reason why many were in the hospital, fighting for their lives. He was going to make him pay. Soon enough, someone came into the room, and this was revealed to be Azazel as he spoke. The people in the hospital will recover soon enough, so you needn't be worried about them. How can I not? Azazel, that bastard is the reason that we have no hope left for this world. And he even left a parting gift. Look at Riatan, she is on death's door because of what he has done. Surzek exclaimed with sadness as he continued. Worse, he took himself out with that damned succubus. He does not even care for others, he is nothing but selfish bastard. Azazel sighed as he responded with a serious tone. 8. No, Surzek, he is still alive. Surzek lost his sadness and asked, Alright, how so? You see, me, Ajuka, Athena and some others believe when the explosion took place, another magic signature was present. I have a feeling that he was able to get him, and his whatever he called that succubus out of there before the explosion happened. That way he was able to escape to God knows where. Surzek nodded in response, as he spoke. I see. So all we have to do is locate him. Azazel nodded in response as he spoke. Exactly. The other leaders have already discussed plans on finding him, to capture him and his girl and bringing them to us. We need to stop him. Worst case scenario, he has revenge planned for us, and then he will go back to his own world. That way no one can summon him back here. Surzek nodded, understanding Issei's motivation as he spoke in response. Very well then, I will join too, he will help us, whether he likes it or not. Serzek spoke with total coldness as Azazel agreed to it. They soon headed away to discuss on what they need to do to capture Issei. Little do they know is that they are close to what Thor wants, not on how he is going to achieve the said goal, and that will be their second mistake. Their first mistake, that was already obvious from the very start. Vatican City AM. Thor and Lilith were walking towards the Vatican Church. In the Vatican City, their goal is relatively simple. They had to find out information on the sacred gear system, and they had already dispatched 2 people that had access to the church, that being Tuji and Mina Shidu. Earlier the 2 headed to Irina's place, where Tuji tried to contact the factions, only to be shot immediately in response in the gut. Lilith immediately restrained the biblical couple and forced them to demand to gain access to the Vatican and info to the sacred gear system. When they refused, obviously, Lilith used memory magic to forcefully extract the information out of them, which caused them heavy pain, as they ended up dying. They could have easily prevented their deaths, but chose not to. They were foolish to do that. They eventually reached the church, where they had to deal with some angel guards that were present. They were easily killed with a bullet to the head, as they took their halos and headed inside. All they had to do was carry them. Before that, Great Red informed them the church people present as well as the church layout, making their job more easy. Additionally, Thor was considering bringing Ophis to his world, but it is her choice. So, darling, what is the plan? Lilith asked. She had returned to her human disguise as she spoke. It's simple. Thanks to the information that the parents of my former childhood friend in Great Red, we know for a fact that the sacred gear system is in the 7th heaven. However, we are going to have 2 problems. Lilith was worried as she responded. What problems, darling? Thor spoke with a sigh. There are seraphs and high-ranking angels guarding the location. I know for a fact that several are resting. So I presumed now would be the right time to strike. But it is the defense system that heaven has implemented. Lily, that is our first problem. Our second problem relies on the existence of an alarm system that exists throughout each and every heaven. So we need to carefully maneuver around heaven, preventing ourselves from triggering any traps. Those are our 2 problems. I see. So how would you suggest we go about by this? Thor looked around to see they were in the 1st heaven. They will only be able to escape when they destroy the system or remove the boosted gear's connection to the system. Thor had pre-planned a nexus point back to their hotel room once they were done. Our goal will be to infiltrate heaven. Since most are male, your illusion magic will screw those angels. Just give them some wet dream so that they can fall. Lilith gave a glare towards him, making his shudder, as she spoke with an annoyed tone. Darling, that magic was meant for you, when we are in bed, so you can fantasize on your fetishes and your skimpy outfit. Thor immediately put his hands on her mouth, as he spoke with a red embarrassed tint. Okay, I get it. But can you give them illusion magic so that they can fall and we can get our distraction? Pretty please. Thor's tone was full of embarrassment and begging as Lilith looked at him with a glare, and narrowed her gaze and sighed. Fine. But that magic is only meant for you, no one else. Thor nodded as he spoke. All right, Lily. Lilith raised her hand, and soon a black glow was generated on her hand, as she soon saw the soldiers that became dizzy. As they soon had wet dreams, they tried to resist. But they couldn't, and soon their wings flickered and started to fall. The alarms blared and the angel army was gathering around them to either help them escape their wet dreams to prevent their fall, or suggesting them to be exiled. Now, Lily! The duo sneaked inside as Thor used concealment magic to infiltrate further inside. This gave their chance to head inside. Lilith then spoke. Okay, we are in. Now what? We move further ahead. The angel numbers become low as the heaven progresses, after which our next roadblock is at the gate to Zebel, aka the 6th heaven. The gate is blocked, and only a god-class being that could break the door. Lilith nodded in understanding, as she asked, so will we have to fight those 4 pigeons after that? Thor shook his head and responded, only if they get in our way, that is all. We can destroy the door and eliminate the angels guarding it. Leave that to me, Lily. Your goal is to make sure to take or subdue any interruptions. Sounds good? Lilith nodded as she spoke. I get it, but I was thinking of a better plan since they want you out. Listen, Lilith spoke to Thor in his ear, as he soon smiled and grinned. As he spoke, nice plan, Lily. Lilith had Thor on the cheek as she spoke. Let's end this and head back. I really want to sleep. The couple started to head ahead. As they looked at several beings being imprisoned, Lilith was unaffected by this place. a bit as she spoke, this reminds me of the Demon Lord's place. Dark and a place where the stars can be seen. Yep, if the information from those two idiots were right, it was a place where the angels that have sinned were imprisoned. Lilith nodded in understanding as they kept moving ahead. They eventually stealthily moved across the heavens, eventually reaching the place where he saw a familiar woman. She was described to be a blonde-haired woman with blue eyes. She was in her late S to her early S. She wore a nun's attire. This was Griselda Corda, Zenovia's guardian. This was Griselda Corda, Zenovia's guardian. Interesting. Was expecting to see her at the entrance. Thor mused as Lilith asked, "Darling, you know who she is?" Thor nodded as he spoke. "That's Griselda Corda, Lily. When I heard of her, while hearing a conversation between Dai and Zenovia, she was one of the top exorcists. That was the one who basically acted as guardian to Zenovia. One of my former tormentors." This just got interesting. Thor grinned as Lilith knew what this meant. Whenever Thor grins predatorily, he knows that there is going to be a death in this place. He knew that this was going to hurt Zenovia the most since the exorcist was pretty close to her. Plus, she is guarding the gate, so we need to deal with. I managed to contact Great Red, so Michael and Uriel are in the underworld making plans on how to locate and capture me. However, they don't even know that we are already here. Lilith nodded as she then added, "So we only have to deal with Gabriel and Raphael, after we are done with Griselda?" Thor nodded as he spoke. "Indeed, Lily and I have a plan set in motion for them as well." Thor immediately positioned himself on the ground, as suddenly several chains were surrounded towards Griselda, as she exclaimed, "What the hell?" The chains wrapped around her and slammed her to the nearby wall, as she couldn't move at all. She tried to use her magic to teleport, but noticed that it did not work. She wondered who her unseen enemy was. Was it the Cows Brigade, or was it someone else? Soon the enemy decided to reveal himself. "Hello Griselda, this must be our first time that we have met, haven't we?" Griselda wondered who he was, but soon after she remembered the person. This was Issei Hayadu, and his succubus. She soon glared, remembering that it was Issei that was responsible for Irina and Zenovia's condition. You are that bastard Issei Hayadu." Thor groaned in annoyance as he spoke. "My name is Thor Regis. Issei Hayadu is dead. Dai killed him, remember?" Griselda growled in response. She wanted to fight, but with the chains that were surrounding her were preventing her from using her powers. She was helpless and immobilized in front of her enemy, as Thor explained. "These chains, they are something truly special, a product of conceptual manipulation, you see. I call them deny all existences. These chains are truly powerful. Though you wish to know why?" Thor spoke with a bit of excitement, as Griselda lost a bit of her anger and became concerned. "What exactly is this power, and how problematic would it be to the factions?" "Oh, you do? That's great. Now you see, these chains have a very unique property. They convert anything that exists into non-exist. Thus, for instance, let's say you are an exorcist and an angel. You will no longer be that, just an ordinary human being." Griselda became horrified at this revelation. This meant he could turn her powers from existing to non-existing with these chains, and she did not know the upper limit of these chains. "Why are you doing this?" Thor looked at her and spoke. "You summoned me to this hellhole without my permission, and even brought my wife here. You would have managed to even bring my little sister had it not been for me saving her. Did you expect me to help any of you after you are done to me? No, that is why I am heading back, and I don't care whether you like it or not." Griselda had a feeling what was going to happen. Tears fell from her eyes as she knew that Thor was here for something, and she did not know what was going to happen. "Unfortunately, I can't do that until I have connections to this world. You will keep summoning me back to my old world, no matter what happens, and I am not going to let that happen." Thor spoke while glaring at her as he brought out Donner and aimed it at her head and spoke with total coldness. "That is why I am going to destroy my first out of the 3 connections to this world, and that is the severing my sacred gears connection to this world." Griselda looked horrified, knowing where exactly he is going to go next. She had a look of pleading, knowing that he plans to destroy one of heaven's most prized systems. "However, you on the other hand, your death will fulfill 2 of my most desired situations. The first being is that one roadblock to my path is removed, and second will be the amount of despair Zenovia would feel. Just think how much grief your death would cause her." Griselda became even more shocked and horrified. She did not know what Thor plans to do with her. Just as she was about to speak, Thor pulled the trigger and shot Griselda on the head as she soon had a look of horror. She had a gunshot the size of a baseball on her head. It didn't take a genius to note that she is dead. Thor was not interested in revenge, as much as he would love to see his tormentors be tormented and subjected to horrifying torture for what they did to him in their previous life. His only goal was to reunite with his family and home world, where his family, especially his parents, friends and younger sister were worried sick for him. He also had to make sure that Lilith heads home with him safely. She was there with him in his darkest moments, and cherished and loved him unconditionally. Shame it had to end this way. You shouldn't have gotten in my way, Thor spoke while puffing the smoke on his gun. As Lilith looked at the scene and shook her head, knowing what Zenobia had done, she did not raise her ward properly. They saw a huge gate that was bearing them access, as he knew that a low-class angel wouldn't be able to get inside. However, Thor had a plan. He soon brought out his missile launcher. Thor calls this Orkan. It was a flash rocket launcher, but with the addition of a round rotary magazine. The missiles were composed of the same material used in the chains that had the power of deny all existences. He soon fired the missiles onto the gate, completely destroying it. The gates were completely destroyed as Thor reacted quickly and activated stealth magic to head inside. There he knew Gabriel and Raphael were resting, and they were confident that their system will protect them. Let's go and end our first task. Lilith understood this and walked forward. As they did so, they knew that Gabriel and Raphael wouldn't even stop them, due to having confidence, and that was something they could use advantage. Speaking of which, you never told me about Gabriel. What was your relationship with her aside from her being the most beautiful woman in heaven? Thor looked at her and responded, truth be told, I barely interacted with her, and I had a feeling that she would be hooked up with Dai even without my presence. The only reason I was even summoned back was because they needed my power to defeat their current problems. Thor sighs as he continues. Ophis told me that the girls in Dai's harem were ever increasing and it was only a matter of when Gabriel would fall for him. But I could care less. Why would I care for her, when I have the most beautiful woman right beside me? Lilith had a blush on her face. Even after 3 years of getting married, Thor was the only one that could get her to blush, as he soon waved his hand and spoke. You coming? Lilith spoke while shaking her head, still flustered by the compliment. Why yeah. They soon reached the 7th heaven, as Lilith was marveled by how it looked and what they witnessed. Even Thor witnessed it for the very first time, as he spoke. Holy, this is really something. Lilith was about to walk forward when Thor kept a hand in front of her, as she responded. Why? Thor soon brought out a small illusion device that he brought with him. He soon showed that the place was filled with several magic detectors that would cause some problems. Thor soon explained. This place is trapped. They managed to protect the system using several encryptions and protections that when once triggered, they not only alert the entire heaven to the intruder and informing them that someone has infiltrated the system, but also teleporting them away. Lilith breathed a sigh of relief. Her husband had rescued her again. Thanks. Thor only gave a smile. He was happy that Lilith was all right. He soon changed into a serious tone. Now our main focus would be to disable these lasers. That is going to be a small problem for me. Using several chains, he was able to find the switches and he was able to disable them. Once they were in the clear, Thor spoke. We can move inside. Lilith spoke in response. So what do I need to do? Thor looked at her and responded. You have to make sure that no one tries to stop us. I have a gut feeling that they will find Griselda and the other's corpse and try to stop us. I see. Lilith knew what she had to do. She started to create a very strong barrier. It would take some time to set up, but she had to guard Thor while he was working on the gear system. Drake then spoke. Partner, listen, in order to sever the connection with the system, remove all information and restriction that system would put on my gear that the system normally would have. You already did so in your old world, but to sever the connection completely, you must add it in the system itself. Sacred gears are designed to work based on what the wielder thinks and feels. That means all you have to do is sever the connection inside the system. You know what you have to do, right? Thor only gave a grin as he responded. That means I have to break the system. Thor immediately started to work on it. He located the boosted gear relatively easily as he started to wipe out all the data that was present. However, as soon as the progress started to appear, the alarm started to buzz, revealing it to be the work of an intruder. Shit! I need to act fast. Thor decided to use the boosted gear to increase the speed of the erasure of the data. He looked at Lilith as he could see the angels pouring in from the other side, which included Gabriel and Raphael. Thor noticed this and threw a barrier artifact that prevented teleportations. Wait, is that what is he doing here and why is he in the system? Gabriel asked with confusion as Raphael responded. I don't know, sister, but we have to stop him. I have a feeling that he wants to harm the system. Raphael and Gabriel tried to teleport to stop him, but Thor's artifact prevented them from teleporting. Gritting their teeth in anger, they had no choice but to break the barrier. They unleashed their strongest magic spells to do so. Thor noticed the progress as he saw that it was % complete. However, he soon saw it slow down. Oh, you have got to be fucking kidding me right now! Thor exclaimed as he soon turned to see his wife start to lose her concentration. He decided to bring out Orkin and respond. Screw this, I am blasting this shit. Thor soon fired the missiles onto the system, causing it to start to be severely damaged. It was able to survive the shots. Getting annoyed, he had to act quickly. He soon remembered that he had a USB port device. It had a special virus meant to screw with any magical device. This would act as his plan B. Thor, I can't hold it for much longer, Lilith spoke with tiredness. As Thor understood this and immediately inserted the USB into a modified port which he connected to the sacred gear system. The USB was inserted and the virus was uploaded as it soon went into the system. He soon removed the modified port created with concept manipulation and knowledge database. As the job was done, all he had to do was activate the virus and the system would get destroyed. Lilith soon started to lose consciousness as Thor rushed to his wife and helped her in maintaining the barrier. She looked at her husband weakly, yet in relief. She had a distinct memory during the war against the church. Years ago, she and Thor headed for a mission. However, their mission started to turn south when the heroes ambushed them, almost bringing them to their limits. Lilith was ready to sacrifice herself to save Thor, but the latter refused to do so and fought against all the heroes. He protected her without hesitation while confronting the heroes, and managed to kill all of them, protecting her from the church. That was the day she developed feelings for her now husband. Despite this, even if they saved themselves, they still had to retreat due to the church forces increasing. They had managed to escape, while getting the location of the church's forces, much to Thor's and a certain demon lord's happiness. This was instrumental in winning the war against the church and eventually the goddess. Back at present, Thor had spoken. Are you okay? I am fine. Is it done? Thor nodded as he spoke. Yes, now let's get the hell out of here. Thor activated the Nexus point as they soon teleported back to their hotel room. They were safe and sound, as the couple sighed in relief. Thor decided to activate the virus which soon started to destroy the system on the inside, after they successfully reached the hotel room. Gabriel, check the system. Gabriel nodded as she quickly decided to do so. However, they did not know that they are basically near a ticking time bomb. The sacred gear system suddenly started to detonate. Everybody, evacuate dash. Raphael was unable to complete as Gabriel was engulfed in a massive explosion that sent the seraph flying. The explosion also killed several pure angels and even middle to high-class angels that were the closest to the explosion. Raphael was sent flying and was also damaged from the explosion. He looked in horror as he rushed to Gabriel, who was groaning in pain. Her wings and clothing were beyond damaged and her face was horribly disfigured. She soon passed out. As Raphael had tears in his eyes, he clenched his fists in anger. He vowed to make Issei and his succubus pay. But first he had to get Gabriel to safety. The only reason she survived was because of her immense power. But she wouldn't unless she gets medical treatment. Scene change. Intercontinental, New York, 8 p.m. Thor and Lilith sighed in relief. As Lilith spoke, it's a good thing you set up the Nexus point, and Lilith was unable to complete as Thor gave her a tight hug. She was taken aback at first, but he could sense his vulnerable side. She remembered an additional memory when Goddess Vices had tortured and almost killed her to spite Thor. He had lost control and almost killed the goddess, who was forced to retreat with her tail between her legs, or like a coward. That was the first time he used Deny All Existences, and it almost killed Thor as well, due to the immense mana used. Thankfully Thor was saved, but that day made him shudder. The mere thought of losing his lover feared him a lot. Lilith knew this and returned the embrace, letting the gentle side of her personality take over as she spoke. It's okay, darling, nothing is going to happen to me. Lilith rubbed the fearful Thor's back as he shuddered at the thought of losing her. She assured him that nothing will happen to her as long as they stay together. This went on for a moment until she spoke. Darling, just know this, I will be by your side until the very end. I'm not going anywhere, okay? Thor soon looked at her and nodded as Lilith responded. Let's head downstairs and have our food. We succeeded in our first task. It's time to enjoy our dinner. Thor nodded again. As Lilith gave a smile, they loved each other a lot and nothing can stop them. They decided to take a short break before going after their next task, but until then, they can rest and recover. Intercontinental, New York AM. Thor and Lilith were inside their rooms. They were sleeping for a while. They both had naked bodies, as they had intense once they were done. Once Thor had recovered from his fear, Lilith, being the perverted succubus she is, wanted to have some private action, which they did. They had some hardcore. Lilith had cuddled her body around her husband, with Thor doing the same. As Lilith soon opened her eyes, as she looked at her husband, she smiled, seeing how protective and cuddling her husband can get. She was lucky to have a gem of a man like him. She did not care whether he was Issei or Thor, the man was her husband, and he will always be her husband, and no one will take his place. She hit him on the cheek, as she spoke. I love you, darling. Thor cuddled her even stronger, making her blush. She could feel his aura. It was like a protective beast guarding his beloved mate. She soon snuggled to his body, as she wondered what her life would have been had she not met Thor. Thor soon woke up while seeing as to how Lilith was snuggling in front of him. He spoke with a smile. Morning, Lily. Morning, darling. Lilith soon woke up, with her S jiggling, as Thor couldn't help but have a red tint on his cheek, making Lilith chuckle as she spoke. I thought I was supposed to be the perverted one. Thor stammered in response. Lilith pulled her husband towards her as she spoke. Oh, don't deny it, darling. You always loved Big S, especially my S. Lilith embraced Thor, making him a blushing mess. As they remained like this, Thor soon settled down on Lilith's S, making her happy. She was going to make his life much better. She was his wife, and will cherish him until the very end. They had split up after a while, as Lilith spoke with a smile. Speaking of which, can we take a break for today? We still have like days before they release Trihexa and it starts to wreak havoc across all their world. Sure, where do you wish to go? Lilith soon spoke while walking towards him. I wish to explore the Times Square and the Empire State Building, darling. Would you take me there? Why not? Let's have some fun before we plan for what happens next. Lilith nodded as she soon got up, and the couple decided to get dressed to go to enjoy their time at New York. Since this was one of the places Thor wanted to visit but never got the opportunity due to his parents always ignoring him and making his life miserable, Lilith was back in her human form, so that no one could know what she really is like. Before that, they headed for breakfast, where they both took a serving of bacon, eggs and some bread. Usually succubi don't always need human food to sustain themselves, since they used to sustain themselves. But human food does work as an alternative, in case they don't have any partners, or in a case where the said partner is too exhausted to continue with. This was the same for their male counterpart incubi as well. This trait allowed them to even survive with less food for them, or when they go for long marathons which can last for hours. Speaking of which, how do you think the factions would be taking their families' demises? Thor only responded with a laugh. It won't be pretty. If anything, they would be grieving the demises of their loved ones. Additionally, they with the Cows Brigade attacks and my presence, they will be too stretched out to even know what we are planning to do, so while we travel around and enjoy ourselves, they will be suffering. Thor spoke mockingly as Lilith sighed, knowing how much Thor detested them for what they had done to him in their past life. Darling, do you think they would know about our intentions? Thor shook his head, confident on knowing exactly what they are thinking. Not yet. I have a feeling that they will soon, if they are smarter, but now, they would be grieving their losses. Some would want revenge against me for what I did to their loved ones. I see. So what was your relationship with this Irina you once called a childhood friend? Thor looked at her and took a deep breath. At first, I actually thought she was a friend, a true friend, and someone that will have your back and help you no matter what happens. She was someone that I would have once called her friend, but here is what happened, Thor explained to Lilith as he revealed everything that happened in the past. You see, we were inseparable, and very good friends. If anything, I used to share my secrets, and she used to share hers as well. However, when I met her a second time, Thor spoke sadly, as Lilith had a bad feeling as she responded. But when we met after years of separation, she was ignorant and often avoided me. I tried to know why, but she never answered. But I overheard their conversation between her and Dai, and I found out that she was never really my childhood friend to begin with. That was all a ruse to get closer to Dai, whom she wanted to relate to, being the heir of the clan. And I, like the fool I was back then, still saved her ass, and she believed my brother in well. She joined the Issei hate club ever since. Thor spoke coldly and sadly as Lilith looked at him with a solemn attitude as she spoke. I see. Thor looked up and spoke. Well, that was the life of Issei Hayadu, not Thor Regis. He died the day he was betrayed. But if I was not reborn as Thor Regis, I would have never met someone like you, or even had loving parents and a sister like the Regis family. Lilith looked at him and smiled as she spoke. I guess yet those heathens will be shocked once the truth comes out, right? Thor shrugged in response as he speaks. I could care less. Even if it comes out, they made their choice and would be facing damnation regardless. After all, you know what they say, the devil was also once an angel. Lilith nodded in agreement as she spoke. That's true. Anyways, let's change topics. We should enjoy our day. Thor nodded in agreement as they finished their food and headed inside to get dressed up. They were going to have an enjoyable day, no matter what happens. Scene change. Serafal Memorial Hospital, Underworld, PM. The actions of Issei or Thor had spread like wildfire and everyone knew what he had done. The destruction of the sacred gears system had devastated the angels, which meant that they did not know if the sacred gears had awakened or not. They didn't even know where it went. However, the worst affected was Gabriel, as even she would have healed herself, she would still be in the hospital for days, if not months, recovering. The explosion destroyed her wings, body, and scarred her face. The worst part was that even if she recovers, the burn marks and scars on her body and face will be permanent. Additionally, healing magic would take months to even recover Gabriel to her fully restored state. Phoenix tears are useless and cannot recover organ loss, and Gabriel's wings can be considered as an organ as well. Michael and Uriel, the ones that were absent in the Heaven's invasion, were furious beyond belief on what Issei had done to their sister, as well as many of their angels. The worst damage that was done was to the sacred gear system. It cannot be recovered at all. They hated that was happening and were worried that it may affect the other sacred gears, but thankfully it did not. But that was not the end of their miseries. Like mentioned earlier, many angels perished during the explosion. However, several of them were pure angels, not reincarnated ones. Angels were already at a steady decline due to the Great War and rogue skirmishes, but there was a chance to reincarnate followers of Church into reincarnated angels, due to the brave saints system. However, pure angels were still at an all-time low, and with some angels falling, this caused an additional problem as well. In the aftermath of what happened, a certain brown-haired boy decided to visit Gabriel's ward, where she was very much awake, but in reality, she had bandages all across her face. Her wings were charred by what he could witness. This was revealed to be Dai Hayadu. As for Gabriel, she had tears seeing the one she had a crush on appear before her. She was happy that Dai had come for her. However, what Dai had said to her was shocking to even her. Hello Gabriel, I understand you can't speak due to your wounds, but this may be my last visit to you. Gabriel became horrified as he had sat beside her and spoke. The attack my brother caused was horrifying to many. Many had died due to the system's explosion. As a result, the leaders will be busy and I have to be with them to make sure he cannot do any more damage. So, I am sorry. Dai only pretended to feign sadness, which was easy to fool Gabriel, but something in her gut was telling her that something bad is going to happen. Sorry, 'cause I will not be visiting you, not that I wanted to visit you to even begin with. Gabriel was left pale, as she wondered what Dai meant by saying this, as he decided to reveal a bit of the truth to her. You see, you have a beautiful body and there is a reason that many actually love you, but you are so naive that you often fail to see if there is someone that cares for you. But now, I don't think anyone would even want to come near you. Gabriel started to weep even more, knowing what was going to happen. She was not sure whether Dai thought the same as those many he referred to. But look, on the bright side, you will no longer be pestered by that dastardly pervert Azazel who only wanted you for your looks. And perhaps many others will soon lose interest as well. Well, I will take my leave, goodbye. Gabi-chan. Gabriel wanted to believe that Dai was not like them. However, against her better judgment, she decided to use her powers to check his heart. She did not want to see Dai to be like them. However, she was horrified to see Dai's heart to be extremely rotten and cold. It was so black that even she was horrified. How could she give her heart to someone this rotten and cold? She cried endlessly. As she looked at the man that was once her lover, she could neither speak nor she could warn the others on what kind of a person Dai really was. 8. She did not know much about her brother Issei, except what Dai and the others had informed her. All she knew was that Issei died at the hands of Dai, but the truth was worse. Dai had killed his own brother. Thus, Issei was reincarnated into Thor Regis, which made sense since the lie that was informed to the others was that he died a hero against Shalba Beelzebub. You are a rotten person. Why did I fall for you? Gabriel thought, devastated. She had a feeling that she will fall due to her guilt, but it did not matter anymore. The only one she loved turned out to be extremely rotten, who will even kill his own brother to gain an upper hand. Now she wouldn't have a lover for a long time, or at least for a very long time. Back with Dai, he was walking towards the faction leaders. He did his task of visiting Gabriel. Although he couldn't tell that he loved her for her body, he knew this would hurt Gabriel the most, for a very long time, since many loved her for her body. Crom also remained silent yet angry. There was nothing he could do but watch, as like the parasite he was able to weave his way into other people's hearts and toy with them, as they helplessly watched, unable to do anything. Scene change. Gremory Mansion, Underworld PM. The leaders had all gathered to discuss on what Issei had done in the aftermath on the assault of Heaven. Those that were absent were the ones in the hospital receiving treatment, like Rias Gremory. Fortunately, some of the critically injured were able to move and walk thanks to the phoenix tears that were supplied to them, healing most of them and recovering them. But others had to wait and are still recovering. Any news as to where he is? Surzex asked, to which the leaders responded. None whatsoever. It is like he is gone, completely hidden. Azazel spoke as Elmenhild responded. None of my scouts had found him in the European bloc. Odin agreed to what Elmenhild said, and Isaka soon responded as well. No sign of him in Kyoto, or even in Ko. Locations in Japan also showed no signs of him there. Lady Amaterasu informed me as such. Surzex gave a frustrated sigh as he responded. We should start locating him elsewhere. But before that we need to know why he did what he was supposed to do. Indeed, he destroyed the sacred gear system, which doesn't make any sense. I know the boosted gear is part of the system, but if he wanted vengeance, why would he do that? Azazel muttered in a frustrated tone. As they did not know what his intentions are, they had to figure it out as soon as possible, to prevent Issei from killing any more people. But if that is not the thing he intends, what does he intend to do next? And who is he going to go for next? Ajuka added as they were trying to figure out what Issei's plan was. And what's worse is that the Cows Brigade are also speeding up the release of the Beast of Apocalypse's revival. They needed to find Issei and his girl and get them to help them at all costs. But the question remains, how are they going to achieve that, and what they will have to do in order to complete their goals. That only leaves the Indian, Asian side, American side, and Australian side, since those are the probable places he would go. Or he would be heading towards the less inhabitable locations as well. That is where we need to look. But the problem is that, how will we get permission of the beings present there to even help us search? Azazel responded with a sigh. We will figure something out. But for now we need to find him in the locations that have limited supernatural activity, that being the American or the Australian side. But if there are any gods, we must call back the people and give an explanation as to why our beings were there. That is a terrible idea, Azazel. We will first contact them, and ask if his location was detected amongst the people. If so, we can send people to capture them alive. Ajuka suggested them, and the fallen angel nodded, as they could only hope that Issei would be located at all costs. But first, we need to help Heaven recover from this attack. What Issei did must have devastated a lot of people. Zeus spoke with a bit of concern, looking at Michael as the latter responded. We will be fine. Thank you for your assistance, Lord Zeus. It's no worries, Michael, though. I don't understand. Why does the boy have so much hatred against you all? Zeus asked towards the leaders, as Surzex responded. It is because of his glory-hogging and perverted attitude. I see very well. Regardless, we need to find a way to get him to our side. The others nodded in agreement, as they headed to Vatican for assisting with the repairs and attending the funeral for the fallen that had taken place. Scene change. Graveyard, Vatican City, p.m. The church held a funeral for the deceased that was being held due to Thor and Lilith's attack. At the church was present, except for a select few that were still in the hospital. The ones primarily present were Irina and Zenobia, both of whom were weeping endlessly seeing Irina's parents and Griselda being placed into a coffin. They looked at their bodies one final time. They looked the same, except Griselda's forehead was covered with a cloth since the headshot courtesy of Thor Regis was brutal. As the coffins were soon covered and soon they were raised in the air, and soon were placed under a burial site as it was covered with mud. Soon the people started to leave one by one as the two remembered memories of the time with their loved ones before being brutally killed at Thor's hands. The chain that had bounded Griselda disappeared without a trace. As a result, they knew Thor to be very strong. If he was able to effortlessly destroy the system and escape with him and his succubus's life intact. The two girls grit their teeth in fury, vowing to find Thor to make them pay. Soon after, Zenobia watched lifelessly the graves of her guardian as Irina walked to her and spoke. "Zenobia, we should head home." Zenobia took a look at Griselda's grave before turning to Irina and speak. "I don't want to go, Irina. That bastard Thor, or Issei, whatever he is called, he killed Griselda without any mercy or empathy. How can he do this?" Zenobia exclaimed with sadness, as Irina responded. "He was so weak, so perverted that even Asia was able to beat him. But how can he become this strong to this extent? He killed even my parents without any mercy. And now, because of that bastard, they are dead." Irina growled with anger. She hated Issei before, now she detested him. But she had no choice. She couldn't kill him because of the leaders wanting his help. She clenched her fists to the point of bleeding, as Zenobia screamed in the air. "Thor Regis! No matter where you are, I will make you pay for what you did to Griselda. Mark my words, I will make your life as miserable as possible." Zenobia screamed with all her might as she was weeping. Irina kept her hand on Zenobia as she responded. "You are right on that, Zenobia. We will make him pay for his crimes. He will not escape from us ever again." Irina growled as Zenobia nodded. They soon left the graveyard, but not before taking one last look at the graves before leaving the place. Scene change. Times Square, New York, p.m. Achoo! Thor sneezed as he rubbed his nose, as Lilith spoke with concern. "Are you alright, darling? You feel like somebody is talking about me, oh well?" Thor spoke with a shrug as they were heading home. Thor wore a casual black t-shirt, a green jacket and track pants. The jacket was left open, and he wore black matching shoes with it. Lilith also wore causal clothing. She was still in her human form. Her clothing comprised of a tight black t-shirt, white stylish jeans, and white heels. The couple had first went to the Empire State Building. As they looked around at the top side of the place, Lilith could have easily flown to the top, but she couldn't reveal her succubus side to the world, not to the human world, as it would get unnecessary attention. They checked the view of the city, and the couple enjoyed every location of the place. Lilith even had brought some souvenirs for their family back home. They soon headed to several locations, to see some special locations like the Smithsonian Institution, to name a few. They did avoid those people that dressed up like mascots, since Thor was warned by some good people that they are known to harass travelers and ask for their money, so they avoided them. They visited many local shops and even some hot dog stands where they enjoyed having the food of that location. All in all, they loved the location. Lilith even wondered if she would get a chance to visit that place, since there is a high chance Trihexa will destroy everything. They even went shopping, where Lilith, like many women, went on a spree, and Thor was forced to carry all the clothing. She even brought some for Amora, herself and her husband, as well as her in-laws, parents and younger sister as well. Yes, Lilith also had a younger sister of her own as well. Eventually they were done and were heading to the hotel, where Lilith had spoken. "Darling, what do you think? Should we add some of the places in our world as well?" "We should. I too like New York a lot, and we should probably begin expanding in our kingdom as well." Thor responded in agreement, as Lilith spoke. "Oh, this reminds me, remember when we went on our first date, during when the war was going on?" Lilith spoke with happiness, as she remembered the date that had taken place, during the war between the demon realm against the church. As he spoke, "How can I forget the date that solidified our relationship even more? I still remember that back then you had very poor choice in locations. Lilith pouted in response as she spoke. Come on, that tavern was so good, it was perfectly conditioned and even had what many men wanted. Thor shook his head and spoke. No, the food was bland, and I didn't even like it at all. Lilith also couldn't deny the fact that the food was bland, and even she hated it. She also agreed to not go there again. You still on that, darling? Lilith spoke, annoyed as Thor looked at her. He couldn't see her sad, as he pulled her towards him and held her hand, probably. But then, you decided to follow my lead and we had fun, didn't we? Yeah, Lilith mused as she understood that, despite the poor food, Thor still tried his best to have fun, and he never hated her for that, although he still remembered her poor choice in locations. They soon headed into a New York bus that took them to their destination. As they entered inside, Lilith rested her head on Thor's shoulder. She enjoyed being by his side, as the bus headed to the hotel, where they decided to rest for the day. Days later, in Amarius Regas' household, the kidnapping of Thor Regas along with his wife was well informed in the rest of the Regas Empire. Needless to say, they were livid that someone as beloved as Thor Regas and his wife were kidnapped with nobody knowing. Robert, Aurelia and Amora acted quickly, while their loss of their son being taken off the grid was heartbreaking and devastating, almost devastating. Aurelia, who loved her son a lot, along with Isabella, who was his guardian maid, they had to locate him quickly. Amora told her parents about what had happened, and the Regas couple acted quickly as Amora was sniffling, knowing she failed to help her brother. However, that was soon distracted when her father came inside with a book depicting the Welsh dragon symbol. Father, did you find anything? Amora asked with hope, to which Robert nodded with a serious tone, as he spoke. Yes, Amora, I did know exactly where he can be. Please tell me. I blame myself for not having strong magical ability to save Big Brother. Amora spoke with tears in her eyes, as Robert hugged his daughter and spoke. Amora, don't blame yourself. You tried to save him, and I know Thor, he will be fine wherever he is and come back to us. Amora sniffled as she nodded. She believed her brother will come back to them. As she looked around, she then asked, Where is Mother? Amora asked, to which Robert splits up and speaks. She is currently talking with the other races, calming them down and explaining that Thor is fine. Some of them believe it is the church that is responsible for their kidnapping and want to go to war against them. But I doubt that is the case. No, I don't think that is the case. Where is brother? Amora asked with a worried tone, as Robert sat down and explained. Your brother wrote his past experiences in a diary, after he had revealed his past to us as Issei Hayadu. Do you remember that fateful day? I do, Father. Amora responded with a growl, remembering the suffering her older brother went through thanks to the sorry excuse of his siblings. She would personally torment Dai if he ever tried to show his face here. What many don't know is that Amora is not just some standard noblewoman. She was as skilled as her older brother as a fighter. Sure, she may not be blessed with the abilities Thor has, and unlike Thor, she does not use bullets or modern weaponry like guns or rocket launchers. Instead, she uses plasma blades that were strong enough to even cut through enchanted steel armor, and Amora was personally taught this by her father, and even surpassed him in terms of sword fighting. That is why. Here, take a look, Robert explained while flipping the pages of a book depicting drawings of certain stuff that his family and descendants can read. In an event the supernatural worlds do find their world and decide to want an alliance. This was more or less a warning, such that his descendants don't get fooled by their plans. A certain magic circle was shown which made Amora widen her eyes in shock. It was the exact magic circle responsible for the kidnapping of her brother. You do recognize it, don't you, Amora? Amora looked at her father and nodded. Indeed I do. This means the Gremry clan were the ones responsible for their kidnapping, and they had a reason why he was taken back. Robert spoke. He had anger in his voice, knowing these people were responsible for Thor's kidnapping. As Amora was seething, she was beyond livid that these bastards are still at it, in ruining her brother's life. Father, what should we do? Robert spoke with a serious tone. Our first priority will be to protect the kingdom. Since the church will be to attack us, given Thor is gone, they will want to take advantage of this. I understood. I won't let the kingdom my brother worked so hard to build fall into ruin. I shall protect it in his absence, or die trying. Amora spoke coldly and seriously. As Robert was concerned yet proud of his daughter, she was a completely different person when Thor was in danger or when he was not there for her. Amora may seem joyful and friendly to many, including her friends, family and colleagues, but if there is anything that she has common with, towards her brother, it is her ferocity and lack of mercy. She is shown to be utterly ruthless to those that even think of harming her kingdom. Even Robert would do the same. He is the creator of the Regus kingdom, a kingdom that would have taken eons to develop and reunite, but Thor managed to do it. Scene change. In the DxD world, Intercontinental, New York PM. Thor and Lilith were in their room. Lilith watching some Rick and Morty while Thor was working on the Nexus Point, since today would be the day that they would head to the underworld. Lilith then exclaimed, "Darling, look!" Thor turned around to see Lilith laughing at a joke as she exclaimed while pausing the viewing, "Look, Rick turned himself into a pickle." Funniest thing I have ever seen. Lilith was controlling herself from laughing out loud. Thor also looked at the scene amused as Lilith soon turned to see the Nexus Point be setting up to be, as she soon asked, realizing what this meant. "Thor, we are going again tonight?" Thor snapped out of his own amusement and responded, "Yes, Lily, today will be our second attack, and this time, it will be outwitting the opposing enemy. Instead of outright killing anyone immediately, we have to play smartly." "I see, so what have you thought?" Lilith spoke with a serious tone, as she switched off the television to prevent herself from getting distracted. As Thor explained to her, "Our goal will be to delete any and all information that Ajuka has relating to Amarius. That is the name of our planet that we had given it." Lilith nodded in understanding, as she remembered it was a suggestion of Thor to name the planet as such. They were still a bit of a novice in space travel, and they have made their first advancement and progress in the space realm, which was the release of the first magical-based spaceship into the atmosphere. It was a space station that was designed to act as a barrier to protect their city from any alien invasions, and to detect their arrival before it is too late. This space station was the first to have people housed in it. There were several others before that, which were used for space-based experimentation, and satellite view of the settlements and locations were given. This allowed another strategic advantage for the Regus kingdom, which allowed them to detect and see incoming invasions before they can even reach the borders. Additionally, there was an additional offensive satellite system that Thor had designed primarily for raining destruction to anyone that even comes closer to miles of the Regus kingdom. Not to mention, the satellites often kept tabs on the kingdoms, in an event that they do reach the level of space technology and become a problem, especially with their mentality of blindly supporting the church. Ajuka often keeps most of his data in his own home, which is located in the Astaroth residence, or he stores it in his lab located in Lilith, one of the two places. But thanks to Ophis, she informed me prior that it is located in the lab, so we have to head there. But it is not easy. The lab is protected by a special code which only 3 people know in the entire supernatural world. Lilith became a bit concerned as she asked, "But who could they be?" "Ajuka Beelzebub, Surzux Lucifer and Latia Astaroth. They are Ajuka's best friend and niece respectively." Lilith spoke with an understanding tone, as she added, "So will we have to fight one of them? You once told me that Surzux and Ajuka are the 2 most strongest devils, right?" Thor nodded to her and responded, "Like I said, fights like this are meant to be avoidable. But if they get in our way, fights like this is inevitably so. Our goal will be simple. We need to go after the weakest link, that is Latia Astaroth." "I see, so do you plan to kill her?" "She is one of the few that is not the one that tormented you," Lilith asked with curiosity. "She did not like killing, but she will not hesitate to kill those that insisted to stand in her, or in most cases, their cases." Thor responded with a sigh to her question. "I will try not to, but if she gets in my way, or if she tries to harm you, doubt I will kill her." Thor spoke in a cold yet protective tone, making Lilith understand what was going on. She knew how protective Thor can get, especially towards his family and his loved ones. "Thor, know this, you can be assured that I will be fine. I know you are worried for me, but if you know me, I am not just a weak succubus. You know of my magic prowess." Thor looked at her and nodded. "The people in this world are not like the so-called heroes that were present in the world. They are powerful, and he can handle them, but he was scared that Lilith will fall in their danger, and she is the vulnerable part of Thor. He feared they would use her against him." "Darling, listen," Lilith spoke while keeping her hand on his cheek as she continued. "You know how we were during the war, right? You always had my back, and I always had your back, right? You know I can handle myself, so you need not worry about protecting me too much. I have full faith that you will protect me, just like you have faith that I will always be there, so just know that I will be fine, okay? Thor looked at her and nodded. As he felt the warmth of his wife's palm, she knew how much he can be protective of those he loves, especially his wife, parents, and sister. But he also knows that each of them can handle themselves in a battle and an event this does happen. Now let's head there and do what we are supposed to do, alright? Thor nodded in response. It was time to finish the second part of the task. He had a feeling that he would run into Zenobia or Irina, but it does not matter. He will go back to his home. No matter what happens, he will wipe out anyone that stands in his way, be it his former parents, his so-called friends, or even the Satans. He will destroy anyone that stands in his way. Lilith kept her hand down, as Thor continued to explain. Okay, so where was I? Yeah, the Nexus point will act the same. It will teleport the both of us back when the task is completed. I have left the main part of the teleportation back in this room, so that those bastards don't try to locate us. Thor then continued as Lilith intently listened to his plan. Additionally, I have set the point to both of us and done it in such a way that once the deletion is completed, it will teleport the both of us back immediately. And the plan will also be different. Your goal will be to make sure that the deletion is 100%, alright? Understood, leave it to me. But what will you do? Thor instead gave a smile as he responded. I will keep them occupied. It is fair that I also have some fun with them, right? I understand. So I will be the one to make sure that the progress happens. But darling, I also want to fight. To stretch these arms. Lilith spoke with an annoyed tone, causing Thor to understand what she was trying to say. He looked at her and responded. Don't worry, in our final task we will be doing just that. Since our fight will be against the yokais that are present in Kyoto, we need Yasaka as our gateway to head to Takamigara, which is where we will fight against the Shinto trio. That will be our longest fight if we have to gain access to the thread of life that binds my soul to this world. Lilith nodded, content that she will have a little bit of battling experience. She has had no battling experience, not that she minded, but so far she has been only doing menial tasks in the fights. In the war against the church, Lilith was known as Thor's second-in-command, alongside Amora, as they were capable of decimating entire legions of church soldiers like it was nothing. Despite being a succubi in nature, she was no stranger to combat and magic, and she was quite proficient and adaptable to it as well. Thor didn't even need to step into fighting, as in some cases Lilith and Amora were fully capable of handling the armies all by themselves. Only when a powerful hero shows up, Thor joined in, and when he does, the trio was unstoppable. Additionally, in the final battle, Lilith and Amora were made to fight against two of the strongest church heroes, and have successfully defeated them as well, while Thor confronted Visus and tortured her to death for every single torment the bitch has put her through. After the war, and after Lilith and Thor got married, they settled down. The couple did train on at least thrice basis, but outside of that, they had mellowed down. That didn't mean they had lost their combat strength. It was just that the last 3 years were focused on negotiations and improving relationships. Thanks to that, the Regis Kingdom is what it is today, thanks to the hard work of Thor, but with the support of Lilith. And now they were finally happy, until they were summoned to this world. But they will head back, no matter what happens, and they won't let anyone stand in his way. Thor then spoke. Well, Lily, let's head out. Lilith nodded in agreement, as they teleported directly to the Astaroth realm. Scene change. Astaroth Mansion, PM. A woman was sent flying towards the wall in a room. She was bleeding across the face and other parts of her body. She looked at her attackers, breathing heavily. She was a beautiful girl with almond eyes, with long blonde hair with blue hair tips, as she has a voluptuous body and large S, whose proportions are similar to Rias. She wears a noble-like dress, which was torn, revealing parts of her body. You just had to make things harder, Latia. Thor spoke angrily as Latia tried to stand up. Thor walked to her with a gun at hand. As Latia glared at him with anger in her expression, the couple had wiped out every single guard that was outside. Several of the guards were riddled with bullet wounds, or they were clawed, courtesy of Lilith. Succubus are known to possess large claws capable of slicing through a boulder in half and even through solid steel. Despite being most adept in magic, she was no stranger to close combat, and she held back when she attacked Dai, sending him flying. Being the higher succubus that she is, Lilith can be dangerous even when she is out of magic, as her claws are still a problem to be dealt with. and she can grow or retract them at her own will and can use them to defend herself. Now she had her claws ready to deal with Latia in case she tries anything funny. You dare attack us, what for? To gain access into my uncle's personal databases. You won't get anything from me? Thor grunted in annoyance. It is the same thing with the Shida couple that were killed. These idiots were only delaying the inevitable. There was something known as memory magic, which he can use to gain information. Latia, you are forgetting something. See, I really think that the Thor you see is merciful. Then you are sorely mistaken. Lilith spoke coldly as she continued with Latia glaring at her. The Shida couple also did not divulge information, and you know what happened to them, right? Latia gulped, knowing on how she is going to die. But she wouldn't be deterred. She wouldn't tell them anything. She looked at them and spoke, then kill me. But know this, you are not going to get any information from me, Thor. That was not what my wife meant, Latia. You think that they died while keeping the information a secret? No. That is where you are wrong. You see, we can extract information from the brain, and depending on your powers and abilities, the process can, of course, be fatal. Latia shuddered at this as she shouted, You are lying. I am afraid we are not. Lilith, please, would you do the honors? Lilith nodded as she brought out a strong magic circle and grabbed Latia by the head. The pure-blooded devil tried to struggle but sadly couldn't. She screamed in pain as Lilith extracted the information needed for them to gain access to Ajuka's lab and system. Latia soon lost her consciousness as a tear fell from her eye, and moments later Latia was dropped as Lilith responded, I got the code. We can go now. Thor looked at her and responded, So will she wake up? Lilith shook her head and responded, For a long while, no, and even if she does, she is not going to get in our way. She is as good as being dead. Thor nodded. He would have killed her, but her being in a coma is as good as being dead. He did not care about killing them. He just wanted to get home. Anyone who gets in his way will be dealt with. Scene change. Ajuka's laboratory, 8 p.m. Lilith applied the passcode that allowed them access to the laboratory. As she muttered to Thor, We are in. Good, no, let us begin with what we have come here for. If things go smoothly, we should be able to escape with deleting the data. Lilith nodded as she spoke. I see. So what is the next thing we do? Lilith, you must have another passcode. If you checked Latia's memories? Lilith nodded in response, as she immediately sat down and started to type the passcode to Ajuka's system, which had all the data contained in it. Meanwhile, Thor used an upgraded version of the original artifact he had used for the Sacred Gear system, which had an even stronger area of effect and a stronger and hard-to-break shield. This would prevent or stall Ajuka from interfering in Thor's actions for a while, or anyone else. As a matter of fact, if they have to reach him or the city of Lilith, they will have to go through the city blocks in order to reach him. This would pose a bit of a disadvantage, buying time for Thor and Lilith to do what they have to do. It's done, darling. Thor nodded as he searched for Ajuka's files, which was relatively easy for someone that was into mechanical stuff like this, as he immediately reached the files and started to proceed with their deletion. Scene change. Astaroth Mansion, 8 p.m. Ajuka and Surzex rushed towards the bedroom, where Latia was inside. As they knew from the claw marks and bullet wounds that this was Issei's doing, they were already killed by the duo. They had to make sure that Latia was fine. As they rushed there, they could see Latia tattered and damaged. She had passed out, or to Ajuka, she had seemingly passed out. Surzex gritted his teeth in anger seeing this. This was definitely Issei or Thor's doing, along with that succubus's doing, as Ajuka shouted, Latia! Ajuka tried to see if Latia was alright and breathed a sigh of relief. However, to her shock, she was breathing but she was not awake. Surzex looked at his friend in sadness, losing his anger for a bit. Ajuka, this is Ajuka cuts him off and responds, I know, it's Regis's doing, but why would he do this to Latia? She, as per my knowledge, does not even have any meeting records with Issei, so why would he go for her of all people? Let's send her to the hospital. And Surzex is once again cut off when a signal suddenly is sent to Ajuka as he became widened in shock, with Surzex asking with concern, Ajuka, what happened? Someone logged into my lab, and if we are all here that means... Surzex became wide-eyed as he tried to teleport to the location, which failed. As he responded, damn it! He has again put those barriers. We need to act quickly. I don't know what he wants in my lab, but he needs to be stopped. Surzex cuts him off as he responds, I will head there and stop him. as well as bring some people there as well. Surzex teleports to the nearest point her could get as Ajuka heads to the hospital to drop off Latia. He knew that he must have done this to Latia in order to access his lab, since only 3 people must have known this, and he must have extracted her memories to do so. He needed to access the barrier Issei had set up so that he cannot steal any sensitive data. Once he was done, he was trying to break the barrier that Issei had set up, and he grew frustrated as the jammer was much stronger than the last one. Scene change. Ajuka's laboratory, 8 p.m. Thor and Lilith were watching the data being deleted. They made sure it is permanent delete and such that the data can't be recovered. This was to prevent any of the factions to know anything more about their planet. The second connection was being removed, and their progress was going well, faster than the one in the sacred gear system. However, Thor grunted in annoyance as he could sense someone approaching their side closer. He looked at Lilith and responded, "Lily, look at the progress, % is done, and once it is done, alert me immediately, and we get the hell out of here." Lilith understood as she responded with a smile, "Leave it to me." Thor soon turned around as a power of destruction blast was thrown at his face. Thor responded by firing 2 shots using his Donner and Schlag, as he turned to see his attackers, revealing a very angered Surzex. Along with Irina and Zenobia, he noticed the others are still recovering or are receiving treatment. He could only sigh knowing that they must be out of Phoenix tears due to the recent attacks that have happened in the underworld and other locations. And even with the clan stockpiling them, they have been suffering loss after loss, meaning that they had to focus on healing magic. Additionally, he wondered where was his peerage, or more likely where is Grafia, but he had a feeling that she must be assisting Ajuka in breaking the barrier along with the rest trying to breach inside. Thor mentally sighed in disappointment. He knew that they all would only be an inconvenience, so he had to stall out till the deletion progress is done. He also had a feeling that still some are arrogant to not see him as a threat. "Well, it's been a while since we have seen last in person." Thor spat with coldness in his tone. "Surzex Lucifer, Issei Hayada?" Surzex angrily demanded as Thor rolled his eyes and spoke, "Regis, my name is Thor Regis. Issei Hayada is my past, get it straight. It doesn't matter now. What is your intention with Ajuka's laboratory, and what do you want from it?" Thor shook his head and responded, "Once I am done, you can find it out for yourself." Surzex gritted his teeth in anger, as Irina angrily shouted with tears in her eyes, "Why the hell did you kill my parents and Griselda, Regis?" Thor looked at her, and narrowed his eyes and spoke coldly and seriously. "Anyone who stands in my way will be dealt with. You brought me here to this godforsaken prison without my permission. See this as a consequence of your actions." Thor spoke coldly as Zenobia demanded, "You bastard, I will." Zenobia was about to rush, but Surzex stopped her. He was able to kill Griselda without any mercy, and destroy the system, and was able to do so much damage. Surzex hated to admit it, but Thor has become a big problem. He was tougher and much capable than before, and knew he had to be dealt with. "Thor Regis, I am going to only ask you this once, surrender yourself, otherwise, I will bring you in by force." Thor only looked at him and shrugged. He knew that the Surzex was prideful like many devils due to his power of destruction. He remembered that he had excellent hand-to-hand combat skills, but Thor had something that could easily counter him and take him down. It was deny all existence, which can not only nullify his power, but can also immobilize him. It took him years to fluently use this skill without any permanent side effects, since whenever he used it, it almost killed him. But now, he can use it freely and more efficiently. It is the same skill that made Vices scared of him. It was the same skill that made the church terrified of his mere presence. Prideful as always, why am I not surprised? Thor slightly shook his legs, which activated the chain underneath Surzex, with him being unaware as he continued to trash talk. "But if you know me well, I am not surrendering. I will go back home one way or another, whether you like it or not." "Then you give me no choice, Regis." Surzex activated a power of destruction spell, which Thor recognized it to be his signature Ruin of Extinction. He knew that Surzex doesn't need him in pristine condition to survive. He can bring him in any condition as long as he is alive. Thor only muttered one word, "Siskan," as he was surrounded by Surzex's attack, as he soon grinned. Chains surrounded the crimson-haired Satan. As he was caught off guard, Zenobia and Irina tried to assist him, only for Thor to immediately activate a chain wall preventing the two from assisting. Serzex was immediately bound by the chains immobilizing him. He tried to use his destruction to break free, but it had no effect. Don't bother, it is pointless. Irina looked at him with hatred in her eyes as she revealed her graying wings, which were close to turning into black, indicating her fall was already happening. Thor Regis! Zenobia also joined in. Both had their swords Hautaclear and Exdurandal as she witnessed Thor narrow his gaze, and before anyone could react, bam! A gunshot was heard as Thor removed out Schlagen, and everyone froze when they wondered who he had shot at. Zenobia and Serzex turned to see Irina having a look of horror. He had destroyed her arm completely using Schlagen. The pain soon registered in Irina's brain as she shouted, "Ahhhhhhhhhhh." Irina soon collapsed to the ground with pain. As Thor walked towards her, Zenobia tried to attack him in response. She wanted him dead for what he had done to her family and friends. As she shouted, "You will die," only for Thor to follow with another shot aimed at her stomach and fired at it. Bam! Zenobia lost her anger and had a pained expression as she looked at Thor, whose gun was smoking due to the shot aimed at her. She dropped her weapon and kneeled to the ground. Pathetic Thor was ready to kill her when someone called out, "Darling, it's done!" Lilith rushed to him. As Thor looked at her, understanding it was done, the data was deleted. The trio were horrified, knowing that these two did something that would leak or expose some sensitive stuff the Satans had hidden from the public. Thor sighed. He wanted to kill them, but the Nexus point would teleport them regardless. Additionally, he sensed more reinforcements coming, and he was not interested in dealing with them. He already got what he came for. He had deleted the data pertaining to his world. As he looked at the three, that either had looks of fear or anger, as he smirked seeing their despair-ridden faces. Well, until next time, I can assure you one thing, the next time we meet, it will be the last time we ever do. Saw goodbye. Thor and Lilith were immediately teleported out of there. He knew that they will die regardless of whether he kills them or a certain beast of apocalypse does. The chains were released as the trio rushed to the laboratory, wondering what damage Thor had done to the laboratory system. Scene change. Intercontinental, PM. Thor and Lilith were able to head back successfully. As Lilith spoke, "Seems like 2 is down. Only 1 is left." "Yeah, and it's the hardest one we have to do. Head to a place filled with gods. That is going to be a big problem." Lilith nodded. However, she believed that they would be able to do it successfully as she walked towards him and spoke with a smile. "Don't worry, darling. We will do it and head back home successfully." Thor nodded as he looked at the moon. Soon they will be heading home, and not even the gods will stop them from achieving that goal. After Thor and Lilith's successful attack on the location of Lilith, they factions were even more confused as Thor did not touch any sensitive or important data, nor he even bothered to head to those locations. This actually made Ajuka even more frustrated due to him knowing that Thor did not even try to harm the sensitive data, but being the smarter Satan he is, he kept looking and eventually found out about why Thor wanted access to that. He understood why Thor attacked them. He wanted information on the planet Amarius, which was where they summoned him from. Sure, it was important, but it was not as important as the evil peace research or even the Malebranche data. "Is that why he went after my niece?" Ajuka exclaimed with a frustrated tone, as he pondered why did Thor not choose to go after any other sensitive data if he wanted revenge. As he soon took a deep breath and spoke, "Calm down, Ajuka, he did this for a reason, and I must find that reason out as soon as possible." Ajuka spoke while thinking for a while. As he continued, "Maybe revenge is not his goal. If that is not the case, then what can it be?" Ajuka disconnected the console, as he headed back inside trying to figure out, while at the same time he decided to check on his niece who was still recovering from what Thor had done to her. And speaking of Latia, scene change. Serafal Memorial Hospital, PM. She was in the Serafal Memorial Hospital, recovering from the wounds that Thor had given here. They were able to figure out that her memories were forcibly extracted. Otherwise there was no way that she would even be in this situation if Thor would have gained access to Ajuka's lab. The factions can also use memory manipulation, however it is done in such a manner that it does not cause any problems for the user. Messing with a person's brain can induce several problems like forgetfulness and hallucinations, but can be limited if done in the right manner. But forcibly extracting information and transferring it to another person has a very high chance of being lethal due to the pain it causes, especially if the opposing person resists. the more they resist, the more powerful the spell becomes and the more painful it is for the victim. Thus it can easily cause someone's death, if the person is weaker, like the Shida couple. For instance, Rainier was able to remove the existence of herself from every human she has ever met, thus preventing them from knowing who she is, and there were no recorded side effects, due to the lack of resistance. Now let's get back to the present. Latia had suffered several concussion and blows courtesy of the Regis couple, but that was not the worst part, due to her resisting so much. Lilith was forced to increase the intensity of the spell, making it painful it becomes. This resulted in her brain being severely damaged as she could barely recover from what had happened to her. She was lucky her biology of being a pure-blooded devil and having demonic power protected her from her death, but her being in a comatose state was inevitable. Till her brain recovers, she is going to be in a comatose state for a very, very long time. Doctors estimated that she would be in a comatose for a minimum of a few months. However, they will try and reduce it whenever they can. Ajuka teleported into the hospital as the chief doctor walked towards him and asked, "Lord Beelzebub, how is she?" Ajuka asked with concern as the doctor explained the situation to Ajuka. As he clenched his fist in anger, Thor did so much damage to his niece for this. He wanted to make him pay, but first he needed to know what his intentions are. He had to calm himself down. "I see. Will you be able to try to see if you can reduce the comatose?" The chief doctor nodded as he spoke. "Yes, I will try. We are working double time to make sure it happens." Ajuka nodded in understanding, as he looked at the helpless condition of his niece. He had to know what his thought process is, so that they can counter and capture him. Soon enough, 2 more people join in. The first was Azazel and the second was a purple-haired woman with the hourglass figure. This was Athena. "How is she?" Azazel asked with concern, to which Ajuka responded, "Her condition is bad, she is barely alive thanks to what Regis has done." He knew that Latia was the weakest link on having my access. But the question is, how did he come to know? "How is she?" Azazel asked with concern, to which Ajuka responded, "Her condition is bad, she is barely alive thanks to what Regis has done." He knew that Latia was the weakest link on having my access. But the question is, how did he come to know of her? This was kept under top secret, but that is not the confusing part, it is what he came after. What did he come after? Athena spoke with concern. As Ajuka responded, he deleted all information that was based on planet Amarius. He had no interest in going after any other sensitive data that we had. That was why he attacked Latia and forcefully extracted her memories. "Wait, are you serious?" Azazel exclaimed incredulously, to which Ajuka nodded. "No, I am afraid I am not. He came after the data that was present in my systems, but he was interested in the planet's data, which was where Thor and that succubus were from. We tried to contact them, but the planet was a backwards planet, almost to that of a medieval era. Not of the modern age. I just don't understand why is he going after the data. Like, what are his intentions?" Ajuka spoke with a frustrated tone. As Athena tried to note this down, she would use her future sight, but all she could see was Thor leaving them and Trihexa wiping them all out. He never told them why he did all what he did. All he said was this: "So you figured it out, huh?" Too late for that, anyway. These words haunted her, making her unable to understand Thor's method of getting home. All they know is that he wants to get home, but they are uncertain with how he is going to do things. One thing for consideration was to bring the Church of Thor's world to their side as allies, but upon the information received they will at least take months to do the same, especially for multiple people. Not to mention, the Cows Brigade has become more aggressive as soon as Thor showed up, making it even harder to track down Thor and Lilith. We need to figure out his next target. That is the only way we can know what he is planning, and until then, there is nothing we can do but to know and find out where is going to strike next. The others nodded to Athena's words, as she continued. "How are those 2 doing?" Athena's words were directed towards Zenobia and Irina, to which Ajuka explained. "Irina has completely lost her arm, and is undergoing treatment, but that is not the worst part. Michael has informed me that Irina has completely fallen, due to her desire for revenge, which was a sin of wrath. She committed that sin and was no longer his ace. He couldn't do much for her due to what happened to her parents. He could neither save her parents, nor he could save Gabriel and finally Irina, who is now in the hospitales for Zenobia. She is receiving treatment for her bullet wounds that Thor had given her, and even she is critical. The wound damaged a lot of her vital organs. Azazel then responded with a sigh. I guess you are right, Ajuka. Now she is part of the fallen angels, and is under Shemhazai. I will help her in whatever way I can. Athena nodded as she growled in anger. That Regis, how can he not realize that innocent people are dying for his own selfishness? He does not care for anyone but himself, and that damned succubus of his. Athena growled as Ajuka responded. Finding him is our priority, so we need to increase security. He can attack anywhere, but we need to recover the damage he has performed, while also combating the Chaos Brigade. Ajuka's words were agreed by both Athena and Azazel as Athena mused. So it is the same as last time, right? Azazel nodded in response, as he spoke. Indeed, I have a feeling that we will have to prepare for a very huge war, and we need to win this war, if the supernatural needs to survive. Both of them nodded in agreement as they soon teleported out of there. Scene change. Time skip brought to you by Chibi. Thor playing with Chibi. Lilith's horns as a tick mark grown on her head. Week later, Intercontinental, New York AM. Thor and Lilith were in their room as Lilith prepared some coffee for her husband. She had grown accustomed to her life here, while Thor was preparing for the final nexus point. Earlier they had contacted their loved ones back at Planet Amarius, assuring them that they are fine. He had a tough time convincing his mother and sister, but he assured them that Lilith is also there and safe with him, as the couple told them that they are fine and will soon head back to their home alive and well. How he was able to do this was because of a dimensional mobile device that he had left back home, and managed to link up their frequency, allowing him to contact them. He even told them that he had brought them some souvenirs courtesy of Lilith, of course, which made Aurelia sigh, knowing how much Lilith gets when she goes out for her shopping sprees. Back at present, Lilith had come close to Thor and placed down the coffee, as Thor responded. Thanks. Thor took one sip of the coffee as Lilith asked, How is it, darling? Good, just like always. Lilith smiled in response. As she looked at what Thor was working on, she then spoke. Are you sure we are even going to need the nexus point? You already have the device ready to head home, right? Lilith asked as Thor responded. Yes, Lily, we need to head home without any interruptions or problems. I have a feeling that the factions will do anything in their power to attack us when we head back, so we have to make sure we can head back. Properlius, everything packed? Indeed, darling, I knew you would ask me that, so I have already placed everything in a separate dimension. Lilith spoke with a smile, as she generated a small magic circle revealing that everything they had purchased is kept safely in their pocket dimension. As Thor spoke, You just know what I want sometimes. I feel like you deserve better. Thor spoke while looking away, only for Lilith to smack him on the forehead, as she responded in an annoyed tone, Mao, darling, I told you that you are the only one meant for me. How many times do I need to repeat myself? Fine, I know, Lilith smiled in response, as she wrapped her arms around Thor, making him flustered as she spoke with a husky yet sultry tone. Once we get back, I will prepare for you something special. Thor gulped, knowing what this meant. It means Lilith is ready for her hour marathon, meaning they will continuously do it for hours straight. He wondered that if he would have this much stamina to satisfy her. Partner, I wish you good luck. I can hope your pelvis survives what is coming for you. Thor gulped in fear as he knew what Drake was implying. He had to muster some stamina for himself, for her as well. Lilith looked at Thor for a moment, and sensed his doubt, as she smiled, speaking, Don't worry, darling. If you can't keep up, just let me know, and we will take a break. Why yes, Thor spoke with a relieved tone. If there is anyone that understood Thor well aside from his mother, it was his wife Lilith, and he wouldn't have been the same without her. However, their conversation is cut short when a magic circle opens up. Lilith immediately separates from Thor, as it was revealed to be Ophis that showed up. I hope I am not disturbing the two of you. Ophis spoke with an emotionless yet happy tone, as Thor responded. Not at all, Ophis. So what brings you here? Thor asked with a smile, to which Ophis spoke, I am here to inform you that today night is the time I would suggest you to pack your stuff and head back to your world. But how? Lilith asked with a confused tone as she continued, I thought we had 2 or 3 more days. Ophis shook her head and responded, No, none at all. RageRevan believes that now would be the right time to strike, and he wants to take down starting with Takamigara. So you will have a run-in with him, man. That is how you two will expose Dai and show the faction's true despair. In their final moments, Thor looked at her for a moment and spoke. But Ophis, you know I don't care for these idiots, right? Ophis nodded as she spoke. I know, but what they did to you was unforgivable, and they will pay. I made myself a promise to destroy everything the supernatural have built, and I shall do it. Ophis's words made the duo concerned for her. As Lilith spoke, Ophis shook her head as she spoke. You needn't worry for me, I will be alright anyways. You should start preparing for it. Ophis was about to teleport, but Thor asked, do you wish to come with us to our world? Ophis turned around and gave a smile. As much as I would love to, someone must stay back to make sure RageRevan doesn't head to your world, so I and Bakared have agreed to do so. I deserve happiness, and I don't wish to ruin it. I see doubt, but Ophis, know this, if you wish to visit us, you are always welcome. Ophis looked at Lilith and nodded as she soon teleported out of there. As the couple were left alone with Thor narrowing his gaze and speaking, I think we should get ready. Let's end this and head back home. Lilith nodded as she spoke sadly. I am going to miss this location, but in the end, I had a feeling that we will have to head back. Thor nodded in understanding as he spoke. I know, Lily. Thor got up and pulled his wife towards him. As she closed her eyes, Thor embraced her, calming her down. She soon decides to stay near him for a while, before they begin their final path to home. Scene change. West Kyoto. Yukai faction, Kyoto, PM. Thor and Lilith had stealthily maneuvered across the Kyoto territory, with Lilith seemingly transforming into her human self such that her body parts won't expose her location. It turns out human forms had several advantages for Lilith. While this would limit her powers a bit, this allowed greatly to improve on stealth tactics. Eventually they could see two Yukai guards, a dog and a pig guard, as Lilith's claws grew and she quickly dashed and sliced them at their jugular veins, killing them instantly, before they could even react. Lilith nodded, as the coast was clear. We are in, Thor. Lilith muttered as Thor headed there. He knew stealth tactics would be useful, as he would ambush the Yukai guards that were present in the location and eliminate them quickly and easily. He knew he had to do it quickly since more will make the mission much harder. The mission was relatively simple: force Yasaka to open the access gate to Takamigara, and only a Kyubi no Kitsune would do that, and there are only two such that exist, that being Kunu and Yasaka, the former having not been taught the trick just yet, leaving only Yasaka to do it. Thor and Lilith quickly eliminated and killed any guards that stood in their way, as well as taking down some of the rare Yukai like the Tengu guards, and even go after some of the powerful ones like Kukisei Kana and Nurana, taking them down as well. Eventually they were in Yasaka's personal chambers, as Thor was about to head in, but Lilith stopped him and spoke. Listen, I have a plan. Go ahead. Lilith spoke with a very concerned tone. You may not like this one, but the way we know, our tactic of extracting information won't work. So what would you suggest? Thor asked with hope. He also knew that Yasaka is blinded by hatred against him, and knew that she won't open the access point, to which Lilith responded sadly. We take Kunu as our bargaining chip. Since they already see you as a villain, she will be forced to oblige. I know you are not good with the plan, but we won't kill Kunu. You are not a fan of using hostages, right? Thor sighed as he responded. He knew that this was the only plan that they have, and they could enter Takamigara by force, but this would alert the other gods as well, and potentially the other factions as well, thus jeopardizing any stealth missions, so they have no choice. I see. That means we have to use her as a bargaining chip, right? Lilith nodded as she spoke. Yes, darling, we have to, and I am not sure that if we can use our mind-controlling spell to do so, since she would naturally have resistance to it. Wait, you said mind-controlling, right? Lilith nodded as she spoke. Yeah? No need to waste our energy on that brat Kunu. I know exactly what I need to do. Thor spoke, as Lilith soon understood what Thor was going to do. So you're telling me that you will weaken Yasaka, allowing me to use the hallucination spell to take effect, and that way we can make the same scenario, and that way we can create an illusion of her thinking that we are harming Kunu, forcing her to open the gate. Lilith spoke with a tone of surprise, as she understood what Thor was thinking. She was perceptive, and that was as clear as day. Indeed, Lilith, I know you hate using hostages, and I could see that in your voice, but you figured out what I was thinking. Lilith looked at him and nodded, as she gave a sad smile, as Thor had held her hand and spoke with a smile. That's my wife, the woman I fell for. Lilith had a blush on her face, as she nodded, understanding her husband. Let's end this and go home. Thor spoke with a grin as Lilith responded. Yes. Lilith decided to hide as Thor barged inside. As Yasaka looked in horror, she was in her shrine maiden clothes, as she shouted, You, how dare you barge inside here? You bastard! Yasaka was ready to incinerate him as she flung 2 foxfires only for Thor to evade them. His goal was to wear them down. However, if she would transform into her giant form, Thor had denied all existence ready for her. He immediately responded by forcing 2 shots at her, as she used her foxfire to damage the bullets. He immediately cleared his guns and replaced the bullets with specialized bullets. As he started to aim at her, "It's pointless." Yasaka raised her hands, generating a strong firestorm at Thor, ready to incinerate him, but keep him alive, since in her eyes, he basically came to her alive. That didn't mean that she would be holding back. She would still keep him alive, since she needs him alive. But that didn't mean he needed to be in pristine condition. However, Thor knew this and narrowed his gaze, almost regretting saving her in Kyoto all those years ago. For Yasaka, only months may have passed, but for Thor, several years have passed. He knew what he had to do. He immediately fired the shots, as the shots went through the fire and aimed straight into Yasaka's torso, making her stagger in pain. Sensing an opportunity, he immediately brought out Orkan, and started firing missiles at her, causing her to use a magic circle to block it. But the first ones destroyed it, while the second ones exploded on impact. She was sent flying towards the bed, crashing onto it. She tried to get up as she glared at Thor. Her clothes were partially tattered, while she had some bleeding wounds on her face. "I am impressed. You do have some durability to survive weakened missile shots." Yasaka gritted her teeth in anger, as he could see how pathetic she looked. He shook his head in disappointment that he wasted his time in even thinking about saving her, and should have left her in the hands of the hero faction. "It's no wonder the hero faction actually managed to capture you with ease. It is really disappointing." Yasaka was furious. This former weakling and disrespected man not only looked down on Dai, but also was constantly letting innocents suffer due to his selfishness. She was going to bring them in one way or another. She decided to transform into her vulpine fox form. Thor noticed a glow generate on her body, as he exclaimed, "I am not going to let you do that." Thor immediately generated chains which immediately bounded the weakened Yasaka, and made her kneel in an upright position. She felt her powers no longer accessible to her. As he spoke, "It seems like you won't break like this. I know just what I need to do." Thor spoke with a dark grin, as Yasaka, for the first time in her life, felt true fear. She could no longer feel her powers, and was powerless in who she saw as a monster. He immediately got a gun and started whipping her with the revolver. Her face was constantly being sent flying in different directions, as she spat out blood or saliva with every blow he struck her with. The sound of metal hitting her face being heard across the room. A/N. I don't own this GIF. This went for 2 minutes as Thor vented all of his anger on Yasaka for her treatment. As he stopped when she saw her face completely damaged beyond recognition, he had to make sure she does not pass out or worse, dies. During this, a magical orb flies onto Yasaka. He looked at her almost on the verge of tears due to the pain. As he spoke, "I would love to kill you, Yasaka." Thor spoke coldly as Yasaka started to shudder at the thought of dealing with the monster. As he spoke, "But I need you alive. I have some use for you." After all, Yasaka had an idea on what he is going to do, and she couldn't do anything. But what Thor said surprised her as well, due to the rumors. "And no, don't even think I need you for your body. I already have A with a way better body and looks than you as well." Thor's words made Yasaka relieved but angered. She knew who he was talking about. "You're right, darling," a voice called out to the two. "Soon enough, the said person also returns as well, as she brings with her the hostage that Thor wanted." While Thor saw Lilith walking towards him, Yasaka saw something completely different. She could see Kuna being used as an hostage, as she had her claws at her throat, as Yasaka shouted, "Let Kuna go, you damned succubus!" Lilith did not respond, since she was not technically talking. It was due to Lilith, who had used hallucination on Yasaka when Thor kept whipping her with the gun. "Darling, you need to speak. Leave the rest to Mills. The act will be ruined." Thor nodded as he spoke. "We will leave her, open the gateway to Takamigara, then we will spare her." "No, please." Yasaka spoke with tears falling from her eyes. "I beg of you, she is the only thing I have. We have no intention of harming her. But you gotta do as we say, or things won't be pretty," Thor exclaimed as he motioned Lilith to manipulate the illusion, making the claws start to hurt the fake Kunu. As she whelped in pain, Thor secretly weakened the chains, allowing her to use the access to the portal. "Fine, But please spare her. Thor and Lilith smiled on realizing how easily they fooled the fox, with Thor being the happiest seeing Yasaka grieve as she opened the portal to Takamigara, as they could see what kind of a place it is. It's opened, now release her. Thor shook his head and spoke, no, we won't, we said we will spare her, not release her. We will be taking her as a hostage such that you wouldn't change your mind, or trick us. Yasaka gritted her teeth in anger, as Thor restored the chains on how it was supposed to be. Both Thor and Lilith headed there inside the portal, as they successfully entered Takamigara. Meanwhile, Yasaka was back crying, knowing full well that she has been defeated by the two. As Thor used his chains to seal the entry point, the two walked forward as Lilith disabled the illusion. They decided to finish their final task. Thor removed his chains, as Yasaka could feel her power restored. She was too bloodied and beaten to even move, as suddenly the real Kuna showed up, along with several Tengu guards. She had heard the noises of metal hitting as she rushed as soon as she could. She then exclaimed with horror seeing her mother's bloodied state. Mother! Yasaka was surprised to see her daughter if they went with her, as she soon realized what the couple had done. They tricked her into thinking they have gotten Kunu, while she was never there to begin with. She was furious at this, as she immediately acted upon this. Kunu, contact the factions and die. Thor Regis was the one responsible for this, and has headed to Takamigara. We need to stop him before he does any damage to that realm. I will try to contact the gods and goddesses there to subdue him as soon as possible. Kunu nodded as some of the healers were healing Yasaka's face. They had to act quickly, as they still haven't figured out why Thor or Issei went to Takamigara, and they had to act quickly, otherwise this can be a problem. Thor and Lilith were walking across the fields of Takamigara. They marveled at what kind of a place heaven was for them. However, their goal was to escape with the thread that was located with the sun goddess Amaterasu. The good thing was that Thor had a unique form which allowed him to take several strikes even from S-rank monsters, or even take on the goddess herself in her true form. Lilith looked around excited to see what beings she could encounter. Additionally, Thor had also applied stealth magic, so that no one could detect or see them, as of yet, until it is too late. She then muttered, "Darling, look at the spirits." Lilith spoke while pointing to the spirits that were floating around. Thor looked at them and had a sad smile. He knew what was coming for them, since RageRevan intends to destroy everything. However, this was not their world, and their problems were not his. Yeah, Thor muttered as they kept walking, eventually reaching a giant palace, as he could see two guards guarding it, as he immediately looked at Lilith, who nodded, as she teleported inside the palace, without anyone detecting either of them. It was too easy for them to infiltrate, since he noticed that the soldiers seemed to be less. Seems like RageRevan is double timing onto everything. Thor spoke with a sigh as Lilith responded, "Yep, otherwise there would be more guards." Speaking of which, what is the plan? Lilith asked, to which Thor responded, "Our goal will be relatively simple. We will head inside and confront Amaterasu. However, we must avoid any of the other gods that will cause a problem, but even then, what surprises me the most is that the Shinto pantheon is one of the more weaker pantheons of gods, since neither Izanami nor Izanagi would pose an actual threat to Surzix. And then we have the three gods that guard the Takamigara, that being Susanoo, Amaterasu and Tsukuyomi." Thor explained as he continued, "Usually Izanagi is the one that guards the life threads, but with his recent departure in guarding the underworld which had sealed Izanami, he had given that responsibility to his daughter Amaterasu. Usually she keeps it close to her, in a specialized door that only she can open, via her magical signature. So our goal is to knock her out, and gain access to the threads." Lilith nodded in understanding, as she asked, "But how will we find your life thread?" Thor responded, "My soul will link to the one that is here. Ophis informed me that Amaterasu wouldn't normally be an easy opponent, but if someone can take on Surzix, Amaterasu will be easy, and it would be nice to finish this as quickly as possible." "I see." Lilith spoke as they both headed inside, stealthily moving past the guards. Eventually reaching Amaterasu's chambers, they knew that they had to fight against her if they had to escape from this place. Scene change. Underworld PM. Azazel and the other leaders were shocked to know what Thor had done to Yasaka, as many expected Thor to kill off Yasaka due to his mutual hatred for them, but he once again proved them wrong. As Azazel and Ajuka thought for a moment, he first destroyed the sacred gear system. The next thing he did was delete all the data relating to the planet. Now he heads to Takamigara, as Azazel and Ajuka along with Athena racked their brains, only for Athena to come up with a horrifying realization as to what or how Thor intends to return to his world. Now I know why he did all what he could do. Wants to return home, but his method, it is completely different from what we had assumed to be. Athena spoke with horror, as many were surprised by this. Soon enough Xerxes asked, "So what is it?" Athena then explained, "He first destroyed the sacred gear system, right?" The others nodded, with those from the angels gritting their teeth in anger, remembering on how Thor had destroyed the system that the biblical god worked so hard to complete. As Athena then explained, destroying it would sever the boosted gear's connection to the system, and I doubt Thor intended to destroy the system at first. He only started to destroy it when his partner was under danger. Athena looked at Raphael, remembering the detailed report he had made just a day or two after the attack. As the audience nodded in understanding, even Azazel and Ajuka realized what he is planning to do now. They had to stop him, otherwise they can't summon him ever again. Even if they tried to bring or ally with the beings on that place, this was not going to be possible since Thor deleted any and all data belonging to that place. Ajuka was appalled at how smart Thor or Issei really was. He presumed him to be a dumb and glory-hogging man, but he was really smart with forward planning and quick and precise attacks. The second thing he did was delete all of the data belonging to planet Amarius, which was Thor's planet when Issei was reincarnated as Thor, along with the boosted gear. This was the second plan he did. He took out any and all possible knowledge we had of the planet, so that we can never use it again. Athena explained the second part, making the audience start to realize on what Thor intends to really do with the next attack, which was infiltrating Takamigara. That means he intends to. Yasaka spoke with horror. She hated to admit, but Thor had some moral compass for not harming her daughter in reality, and only putting an illusion of showing that he was going to torment her daughter, or even kill her if she does not comply. She hated the fact that she was so easily deceived, and this time, she fell for it, unlike last time, where Issei only lied to her, but she was convinced that he was truly lying. Indeed, Lady Yasaka, that is why he did what he had to do, using your weakness for your daughter to access Takamigara, and the worst part is, he is already attacking her as we speak. Athena explained to everyone who now understood what Thor really intends to do. As she continued, he plans to sever his life thread, the same connection that bounds his soul to this world, since once he does that, nobody can summon him back here, and he will head back to Amarius once this is all over. The faction leaders now understood what Thor intends to do, as Xerxes quickly responds, "We need to alert Amaterasu-sama about this. Thor needs to be stopped. If he can't, then there is no way we can use his help," Xerxes declared, as Yasaka immediately tried to do so, as she widens her eyes and responds, "Amaterasu is unresponsive." The faction leaders became horrified upon learning what had just happened. Thor had succeeded in severing his final connection to this world. As Odin responded, "We have to head there. Fast." Odin's words made the others nod. As they immediately teleported to Kyoto, they had to stop Thor, otherwise any and all hope they had was lost. They also took all members of Team DXD with them, as more allies would help them, and this included the Hayate family as well. Scene change. Takamigara, minutes earlier, a fit and beautiful young woman around Irina's age, and long black hair. Her hair is in a ponytail tied in a red bow, the bottom to prevent it from freely moving. She wears the standard clothes of a Miko, a Japanese priestess. This was Amaterasu, the goddess of the sun. Unfortunately, she was bounded by several chains that inhibited her ability to move, or use her powers, making her an ordinary human. The two attackers soon walked towards her, with Lilith being the first attacker, and Thor being the second attacker. Unfortunately, she was bounded by several chains that inhibited her ability to move, or use her powers, making her an ordinary human. The two attackers soon walked towards her, with Lilith being the first attacker, and Thor being the second attacker. She soon spoke her words to Thor. "Curse you, Regis!" She passed out as Thor released the chains. She had taken heavy damage due to being suddenly ambushed and attacked. The chains prevented her from using her power at all. He soon carried her like a sack of potatoes and headed to the secret chamber, where the threads were kept. The signature was scanned, as the doors opened up revealing several threads, as Lilith spoke. "This is it, darling, we are heading home." Lilith spoke with happiness as Thor gave a smile to her. He then tried to sense his thread, which took some time. However, Thor was able to see it glowing at the very end, next to his old family. He was angry for a moment, but soon shook his head at his own anger, and immediately jumped to grab his thread and place it in his hands. Finally our journey in this hellhole is over. Well, I wouldn't call it a hellhole, more or less vacation. But regardless, Thor ripped the thread and kept it with him. He and Lilith soon went outside, as he threw the knocked-out Amaterasu on the floor. However, just as he was about to rip the thread, the doors broke apart, as suddenly several people were shown. This was revealed to be the faction leaders, along with Tsukuyami and Susanoo, as the three were horrified to see what Thor had done to her sister/Lady Amaterasu. Susanoo, Tsukuyami and Isaka shouted in concern, as Thor spoke. "Worry not, she is alive, only knocked out," and Thor soon rips the thread in front of them, as Serzex and the leaders shouted, "No!" The thread soon disappears, as Thor speaks coldly yet happily, "My connection to this world is completely severed. Now no one can summon us here again. We will be heading back to our world, now suffer the consequences." Thor brought out a portal gun, which would be an access point to this world. As he spoke, "Adios." Thor fired the portal gun right behind them, as Serzex walked forward and shouted, "I won't let you escape." Serzex and the other leaders used their strongest attacks to try and stop them. However, before they could do, several chains surrounded the leaders and other gods, completely nullifying their powers. "Curse these chains!" Zeus angrily shouted as he could not feel his power, as Thor and Lilith smiled seeing them like this. However, just as they were about to speak, someone else decided to barge in, and this was revealed to be RageRevan, who had released none other than the Beast of Apocalypse. Trihexa was described to have the appearance of a large beast with characteristics coming from different animals like a lion, a leopard, a bear, a dragon, etc. It has 7 necks, 7 heads, with 10 horns, as well as 7 long thick tails of different shapes. It also has 4 stout arms and 2 legs that are even thicker than its arms. Its main body is that of a primate leaning forward and is covered in black fur, and what appears to be scales all over its body. Its size is well over several hundred meters, making it significantly larger than even Great Red. Its size is well over several hundred meters, making it significantly larger than even Great Red. "No." Serzex spoke with fear, as RageRevan spoke with a grin. "Seeing you powerless and helpless actually makes me smile, makes all of us smile. So we finally meet in person." Thor looked at RageRevan for a moment, recognizing him to be the man and responsible for everything, but that was not his problem. He would become his problem if he attacks his kingdom, although he wondered if deny all existences would work on someone like Trihexa. It is capable of effortlessly taking down a super devil, but the power difference between him and the Beast of Apocalypse is vast. Lilith looked at Trihexa with fear in her eyes as Thor pulled her towards him. "Yeah, now, I will be heading back." Thor and Lilith were about to head back, when RageRevan asked, "Thor-kun, can you do me a favor and bring Dai? Ophis has asked me to reveal who he truly is to everyone." Thor looked at RageRevan and shrugged. "Sure." Thor soon pulled the chains towards him. Dai pleaded to RageRevan as the latter released all his memories to the faction leaders and the DXD team, who had looks of horror, with Dai glaring at Thor with hatred, who did not care less. "Well, I will be leaving." Thor and Lilith walked into the portal, which closed down soon after as Mickey and Gore tried to plead tearfully. But the duo were long gone, into their worlds. The girls had a mental breakdown, with many muttering, "This cannot be," or "This is impossible." Some unfortunate ones screamed, "No!" This was primarily Zenobia and Irena, who had managed to recover from their injuries, as RageRevan then madly declared, "This is all you're doing. You brought this on yourselves, believing a fraud over the real hero, who has the complete right to abandon all of you to your deeds. Now witness Armageddon." Foolish faction leaders, Yuhaya. RageRevan commands the Beast of Apocalypse to fire a massive giant energy beam at the defenseless leaders, as they all had no choice but to accept their fates. They all cursed Dai for putting them in this predicament, as they were obliterated, out of existence, having no trace of their former selves left. Thor and Lilith finally jump inside the portal. Inside their room, as they look around, they were happy that they were finally home. They soon looked at the mansion door that led them to their personal living room. He opened the door, revealing his surprised father and sister, who both had tears in their eyes. "Hey Dad, Amora!" The two did not hesitate and rushed towards Thor and Lilith, embracing them. Amora was in tears, exclaiming, "I'm sorry," over and over again, as Thor and Lilith did not blame her for not saving and stopping them. They came back, and that was all that matters. They soon split up, as Robert asks, "Are you two all right?" Thor and Lilith nodded in understanding as Lilith spoke. "Yes, Dad, we both are all right, and Finu managed to make it out alive, and even managed to expose that bastard of Thor's brother." Lilith's words made Robert nod in understanding, while Amora growled, as she spoke mockingly, "Serves those bastards right. I wished I could have seen their faces." Amora's words made Lilith narrow her gaze, knowing sometimes she can turn from a sweet and caring girl to almost like her brother. However, before she could say anything, someone else also comes in. Soon enough, Aurelia walks in, as she widens her eyes seeing her oldest child and his wife back and happy. She almost drops the plate she was carrying, as she rushed to Thor and Lilith, giving them a bear hug while exclaiming, tears falling from her eyes, "Oh Thor, Lily! I am so happy that you have come back safely. I feared those bastards may have harmed you in any way. But you came back, I am so happy." Both Thor and Lilith returned her embrace, as Thor had spoken. "I told you, Mom, I will be fine." Thor spoke while assuring his mother that he would be fine. If there is anyone that Thor cherished along his wife, it was his family. "We even came back safely, Mother, and we have much to catch up to." Lilith spoke as Aurelia nodded in understanding, as she soon splits up from them and they all settle down, as they discuss on what happened in the other world. They were surprised that they were able to succeed without a problem, but Thor explained that this was all because of Ophus's help. They could have headed back much earlier, but the factions would keep summoning him due to his connection to that world. "So the only way you two could come back without them summoning you again was?" Robert spoke as Amora continued, "To sever all connections you had to this world." "Yes, Amora, Dad, our only choice was that." Thor spoke as Lilith continued, "We first had to head to the heaven to destroy the system, thus severing the boosted gear's connection to this world. Then we had to delete all the data about the planet before it could be used against us, and finally, Thor had to cut the thread that belonged to his old self, that being Issei Hayadu. It was the only then we could come back. I see. Even after what they did, they still had the guts to summon you there. Shameless beings." Aurelia spoke with anger and hatred in her voice. She would have loved to freeze Mickey solid for being a disgrace to the term mother, but she could care less. With Trihexa being released, she would most likely either be hunter or dead. "I agree with you, Aurelia." Robert spoke with equal disdain for them, as Thor responded, "Well, at least it is a good thing that I and Lily came home safely. Speaking of which, what happened while I was gone?" Aurelia nodded in agreement as she explained. "Amora explained us the situation, and soon enough news of your disappearance spread like wildfire. I managed to negotiate with the other representatives about your situation, while Robert researched who was the one responsible for your disappearance." Aurelia continued, making Thor and Lilith concerned, as she spoke. "I had negotiated with the others. All representatives were ready to go to war, even the superiority-driven elven race were also ready to do so, against the church." Thor was also surprised at this, knowing on how exactly he brought the elves to his side. Out of all the races, the elves were the ones that gave him the most problems, while the Selkies, mermaids and dwarves did not want to ally due to having bad experiences with humans, and having great distrust of them. Elves had a superiority complex, and this was the most in the high elves, which had governed the elven-populated cities. However, this also caused a friction between the elves and dwarves as well, and they demanded for Thor to give them complete control of the Regis kingdom due to them proclaiming their superiority, which resulted in Thor and the other representatives all implementing diplomatic pressure onto them, thus forcing them to relent. They eventually started to see their hubris, and were beginning to work against this superiority complex of theirs. But unfortunately, there were still some that still looked down upon other species. "I see. So what happened after that?" Thor asked with a confused tone. As Aurelia explained, "I was able to convince them to wait for a month, although you will have to show yourself to them, along with Lilith." Thor and Lilith nodded in understanding, as he spoke. "I will, Mom." Aurelia gave a smile. As soon enough, someone else also knocked on the door as Aurelia spoke, "Come in." Soon enough Isabella came inside, along with someone that had the looks of a young child. She was the demon Lord Zyrel. She seemed to be wearing royal clothing belonging to the demon realm, which comprised of a red dress skirt, golden medieval armor, giant metallic boots and a cape. She had flowing gray hair and had 2 giant golden horns coming out from her head, with their tips being crystallized purple in color. She wielded a giant axe. She was the representative, and the leader of the demons. She may look small, but her power level and magical prowess is next to none, almost on comparison to Isis herself. She was Thor's best friend. Lady Zyrel is here to Isabella was about to speak only to notice Thor near them. Hey big sis, been a while. Isabella teared up. She was the one who looked after Thor while he was in exile because of the church, almost acting as a big sister. She did not hesitate and gave Thor a very strong hug as she was happy that he had successfully returned. She, like many others, were also aware of the atrocities that Issei or Thor had to go through. She hated what had happened to him and still loved him regardless, as Thor still saw her as an older sister figure. Once they split up, Isabella spoke with tears in her eyes. Thor, are you alright? Have they harmed you? No, Isabella, I am fine. I am alright and better than ever, and I made it out safely, right? Isabella nodded as she soon split up. After which Zyrel walks forward and speaks with a snarky grin. Well, Thor, I always knew that you wouldn't get killed from some teeny tiny brats from your old world. After all, you would embarrass yourself. If that happens, Zyrel's tone was too taunting, as Thor had tick marks on his head. If there is anyone that can provoke him and get away with it, it is Zyrel. Oh look, it's the wannabe child lord, the midget who failed to reach puberty. Now it was Zyrel's turn to get angry as Amora and the other side knowing what was going to happen. These two fight like little children, and it was Zyrel who can bring out Thor's immature side. Lilith and Isabella had wry smiles knowing what kind of a bond they have. They have each other's backs, but they will bully and tease each other whenever they clash. Oh look, the itty-bitty demon getting all puffed up. Zyrel lost her cool. If there was anything that she hated, it was being called short. And many of her friends, especially her best friend Thor, did so like that. She rushes to him and tries to hit him, but she still can't hit him because he has his hand on her face and holding her back, and her arms aren't long enough to reach him. But she still can't hit him because he has his hand on her face and holding her back, and her arms aren't long enough to reach him. A/N. I don't own this gif. I will fucking murder you, Thor. Don't you dare call me short. Thor was getting bored as he yawned at her face, making her even more angry. However, before they could continue, bam, bam, they both got a smack on their head, as it was revealed to be an annoyed Aurelia as she spoke. I want the both of you to stop acting like a bunch of children. Both of you are adults, act like one. Is that clear? Both nodded while rubbing their head in pain. They reluctantly agreed to stop, knowing that angering her mother is a death sentence. Well, I'd say regardless, it's good to have the face of unity back. Zyrel spoke with a chuckle, as Thor nodded in response as he speaks. That is true, and from what I know, they can't summon me back even if they wanted to. Isabella then added. That is good to hear, so we can settle with our normal lives, right? Thor nodded as he spoke. Yep, but before that, I have to reveal to everyone that I am back and alive. The others nodded in agreement, as Zyrel responded with a smile. I see. Well, I guess I will be sending the news to my people back home. By everyone, Zyrel teleported back to her kingdom, leaving Thor and the others alone, as Aurelia spoke. You two should rest after all. Your last battle must have been tiring, right? Thor and Lilith couldn't agree as Aurelia gave a smile and spoke. You two should head inside and rest, alright? Aurelia spoke while keeping her hand on Thor's chin, who nodded in understanding, as Robert spoke. And you can leave the paperwork to me and your mom. You managed to head back, and that was what was important. Thanks, guys. Aurelia and Robert gave a smile, as they soon left, leaving Amora alone, who seemed a bit saddened as Thor asked, Amora, what is the matter? Amora looked at her brother and spoke, too. Amora, don't beat yourself for failing to stop us from being teleported. You are not at fault. Amora looked at Lilith, who responded, but even then, I couldn't protect Big Brother and Big Sister from those bastards. I hated the fact that Big Brother had to go to the same world that once made his life miserable, and for that I am sorry. Amora exclaimed while looking down, tears falling from her eyes as someone hugged her, which caught her off guard. It's alright, Amora, let us out. Thor spoke while rubbing her back. The little daughter of the Regis family cried onto Thor as she cried onto his clothing. Thor did not care one bit. His sister often did have a tendency to blame herself even when she was not at fault. Lilith also joined in on the hug as the couple hugged Amora, assuring her that everything was all right. This went on for a while before they split up. As Thor spoke, Amora, now I am back, you need not worry about me. I won't be going anywhere. Darling is right, Amora, we will be here. You need not worry about it, all right? Amora looked at them and nodded. They knew Amora cared for her loved ones a lot, and was known to be very protective of them. She soon spoke with a smile after wiping her tears. Yeah, I guess you are right, Amora responded with a smile as she soon got a call from her friends and spoke. Yo, I am on my way. Seems like you are heading out with your friends, Amora nodded as she spoke. Yep, I will be seeing you soon, big brother. Lilith soon cuts her off and speaks. Clean your face up, you wouldn't want your friends to see you crying, right? Why yeah, thanks big sister Lily. Amora exclaimed in gratitude as she headed to her room and decided to change, leaving the couple alone as Lilith spoke with a smile. Nay, darling, you remember what you promised me, right? Thor gulped as he tried to escape, but Lilith was not having any of it, wrapping her tail around Thor's chest as she spoke with a seductive smile. Now we'll do our marathon today. Thor shuddered at this as he spoke with a look of dread. Fine. Thor shook his head. He did promise her after all, as he took his wife and carried her in a bridal manner as she wrapped her arms around him. She snuggled to his chest as the couple went into their private room to perform their hour marathon. Scene change. Time skip brought to you by Chibi. Thor trying to sneak to escape from his very angry wife. 3 years later, Rega's household, Amarius AM. Thor was working on his paperwork. Now a year-old man was finishing the last of his paperwork. He knew that things have becoming better for his kingdom since now the church is starting to lose its grasp over some of the kingdoms, and those that did are becoming independent kingdoms. Some have even opted to make an alliance with the Regas kingdom. However, Thor and many of the representatives were reluctant on doing so, since they did not trust them just yet. Additionally, with the recent church becoming even more territorial despite losing some of its kingdoms, they have been raiding such kingdoms and replacing the rulers with puppet rulers, which have been trying to gain access to the technology and power that the kingdom possessed. Thor was not going to let that happen, and is considering wiping out the church and their influence on his world once and for all. Some races don't want war in his kingdom, but will defend it, if need be. Well, I should be done from my side, Thor spoke as he stretched his arms. As he did so, someone came inside the room. This was Lilith, however she was accompanied with someone else as well. This was their son, who was described to be a black-haired boy with red eyes. He looked like a splitting image of his father. He wore a green shirt and black pants. This was Luke Regas, son of Thor Regas and Lilith Starlight Regas. Papa Luke excitedly greeted his father, who got up and happily accepted his son in his arms, as he had his wife on the lips. How is my child doing? Thor exclaimed in response, as Luke giggled in response, with him being lifted up by his father, as Lilith ruffled her son's head. She remembered the day she had gotten the news that she was pregnant with Luke. It was after the marathon, and this time, the results were positive this time, and Lilith was ecstatic, remembering how she cried joyful tears that this time she was finally pregnant. Even the other Regas were also ecstatic to hear the couple were going to have a child. Especially Amora, who was happy that she was going to be an aunt. Drake was also happy as he spoke. Well, it is good that you two are not doing it in front of Luke. Drake spoke with a snarky tone. Lilith gave a playful glare. She would have insulted Drake, but with Luke around, she chose to get back at him during another time. Regardless, Drake, my job is done. Now I can spend time with my son and wife. Lilith nodded as she spoke while wrapping her arms around him and embracing her husband and son. However, just as they were about to rest, Amora came inside as she spoke with a worried tone. Big brother Thor, I hope I am not dash. Amora's words made the family surprised as she looked at Luke, who waved at her, reducing her worry a bit. Now Amora was much older, akin to an 8-year-old. Amora, what is wrong? Amora walked up to them and spoke in response. The church is planning to strike the kingdom. In just a few hours. Amora's words made the couple horrified while Luke started to weep, with Lilith taking the child and calming him down. Thor narrowed his gaze and spoke. Where are they striking from? Amora spoke with a worried tone. They are striking from the south. The command has started to prepare for an counterattack. we need to stop them from even entering our lands. Understood, I will do that. Lily, let's leave Luke to our parents. It's time we send a message to the church once and for all. Lilith nodded. She knew her in-laws will protect their son while they are gone. It was time to end this once and for all. Scene change. Outside the Regis Kingdom boundaries, PM. The trio could notice the army approaching as they were ready for what comes next. They knew that the war with the church will go on for a while. However, Thor has a plan to send a proper message, which is to attack the Regis Kingdom, and death is what they will get. You ready for this, Lily Amora? Thor spoke while bringing out his revolvers Donner and Schlag, as Lilith nodded, readying her magic circle. Amora brought out her 2 twin plasma blades. She was a close fighter as well. She knew that they are not going to stop since the Regis Kingdom goes against Visis's principles. She was going to show them what they are capable of. Let's go! Thor and the girls immediately dash towards the soldiers, catching them off guard as he fires 2 onto the heads of the 2 soldiers. The others immediately pick up on this, as the commander shouts, "Kill our Messiah Slayer, he does not deserve to live." We shall see about that. Thor grinned as he switched to his missile launcher Orkan and started to fire a barrage of missiles at them, causing explosions, as these missiles were filled with napalm, which burned their skins. Their armor, nor their blessing failed to save them. Thor was able to wipe out so many of the soldiers in just a few shots. He soon took to the air and spoke to Lilith. Lilith, end this. Lilith nodded as she unleashed a full barrage of thunderbolt at the soldiers, as Thor brought out his boosted gear as a voice commanded, "Penetrate!" Lilith's lightning was easily able to bypass the shields and electrocute many of them. As the commander started to look at them in fear, they were nothing but a bunch of monsters. Thor noticed the lack of heroes as he shook his head at the church's overconfidence. He soon noticed a scream coming from the other side. They turned around to see Amora gracefully dodging the attacks, with heavy speed and precision as she effortlessly decapitated the troops without any mercy or empathy. The last thing they could see was her cold look. A soldier charged at her with a sword in hand, only for Amora to block it, as she spoke coldly. Too slow, she pushed it back with her strength and decapitated the soldier. She kept mercilessly slaughtering anyone that got in her way, with Thor and Lilith doing the same, killing any soldiers that had gotten in the way, as the commander looked at them in fear and shouted, "Retreat!" The soldiers started to run away from them without fear, as Thor noted this battle was shorter than he expected. At first he expected it would have been a bunch of heroes which would be problematic, but they were cannon fodder. It was too easy for them. Ready! The trio nodded as Thor changed his Orkan to its more evolved variant Igni Orkan, which had even more rounds, with Lilith and Amora going full on a very strong magic blast, the latter replacing her blades as they fire at the fleeing soldiers. They all scream in pain as they were being disintegrated or being burned alive, leaving no trace of them left. The 3 sigh in relief, as this would definitely be known by the church, but they could care less. They will always be ready for those morons. The problem is, while the kingdoms are under their control, the main leaders had gone into hiding, which is not detected by the Regis Kingdom, yet. The people are just followers to the church, and the leaders have to be found until it is too late, if they have to end this war without any unnecessary bloodshed. They soon head back home, knowing their family is waiting for them there. Scene change. In the DXD world. Destroyed location, PM. The world of the DXD was nothing but ruins. All because of a boy named Dai Haida who desired nothing but more power, fame, women and lust. Everything was destroyed, the underworld being the first to fall. RageRevan revealed the truth to everyone, which made them all horrified and some even pale at what they witnessed. They cursed the now deceased Dai for bringing them to this state, before Trihexa ultimately killed them as well. RageRevan was content with what he had done. He decided to live in his world of chaos and madness that he had personally inflicted on this world. Many were killed already, thanks to the Cow's Brigade, or more accurately, Clippeth. As for the factions, they were nothing but a resistance, fighting a losing battle against RageRevan and his Cow's Brigade. They hated Dai for bringing them to this point. Now they live in misery and are now hiding from RageRevan, knowing that he will kill anyone that opposes him and his new world. They also believe this was karma for abandoning and humiliating the real hero. There was nothing they can do but suffer. It was truly hopeless for them. Thor or Issei was long gone, living happily in his world, while they suffer a lonely and miserable life. Thanks for watching this video. You really enjoy this video. Like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support and follow RageRevan for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.